the Brutus stone.
You know, it's like, right, okay. Right, so, okay, the meeting is now streaming live, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to find out if anyone has got anything they would like to say this week, starting off with Annie.
No, I'm still carrying on with my candle reading. I'm enjoying it. But apart from that, I can't say I've done anything this week at all.
All right. And you notice this is the true flag of David ap Gruffydd, who was hung, drawn and quartered at Oswestry. Shrewsbury, actually.
I'm wearing my T-shirt.
1283. Yeah.
It's very nice. Gorgeous flag.
And this is one of very few flags ever printed, right?
Right. Well, you did well to find it then, didn't you?
No, I had it made.
T-shirts. This is your opportunity.
Well, if anyone would like this on a shirt, right,
they're very nice.
They are very. Thank you. I mean, yeah. If anyone would like one of these on a shirt, then it's all up, and it's all there. You can have one. And also today we've sent one more of these packs out to Margaret's got her pack, and Drina, she's got a bag of coins that she's got to give you for your pack. So there's some jangly things in a little bag as well. So you know, that's fine. It's all for the good of the country, right? Anyway, thank you, Anne. Thank you, Anne. Anne reminds me of Margaret Thatcher in a strange way. Right.
What? I'm most insulted. No, I'm leaving, I think. If I'm anything like her.
Wash your mouth out. God.
It's a terrible thing to say to anybody.
Exactly. You've got no class.
Oh, Roger looks like Mikhail Gorbachev. Right. Roger, anything you want to say?
Yes.
Actually, I've got to be honest with you. Roger's Bonds is actually doing pretty good. I got to be honest with you. Last week, it was like a scene from the Walking Dead movie. Right. Anything you want to say, Rog?
Oh, the lagoon, the creature. No, I'm waiting for your history lecture.
Well, that's a shame, really. I'm not doing any history at all. I'm doing archaeology, but that's like
about London. Yeah.
Roger. Oint Leutnam. That looks really good, Rog. I got to be honest with you. That looks really good. It's almost as if you've made an effort tonight for my class.
No. Just squatted in.
Yeah.
Evening all and just waiting for the new stuff that's coming out tonight, I hope.
Yeah, well, I have been liaising with a woman, right, to get this stuff to you this week. I've had to do favors and all sorts of things, but that's life. Judith, anything you want to say, babe?
No, sorry, nothing.
Oh,
I've got a new job and I've been learning software. It's very difficult.
Oh, you've actually
got a more room in my brain.
Oh my God, you've got a new job.
Well, same but different, if you know what I mean.
So you've been promoted, have you?
No, same job, different task, if you know what I mean.
Oh, right. So instead of being an Oben Ruben Gruben Fuhrer, you're an Oben Ruben Gruben Oben
Gruben, yeah.
That's right. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Talking about splendid looking women, Drina.
Can I haven't got anything historical or archaeology to say. Can I ask what the creature is on the flag? Is it a lion or a dragon?
It is actually a lion. So
isn't the lion English?
Roger, what did you just say?
This was a special lion.
Wash your mouth out. The people from Cymru, Wales, the kingdom of Gorllawen, right? No, not Gorllawen, Gogledd. Gorllawen, that's west. Gogledd, the kingdom of Gogledd, Cymru, right? This is the flag of David ap Gruffydd, the last true king of Cymru, Wales. Not Llewellyn ap Gruffydd, David ap Gruffydd.
Okay.
The man who protected Llewellyn ap Gruffydd's wife and his children from being captured by the English. This is the man who did his best.
Yeah.
To rule himself into the ways of old Cymru. But unfortunately, he was eventually captured.
But then lions are on lots of flags because when people are choosing flags, they try and choose big, strong, dangerous animals or birds, don't they? They wouldn't put left like to put a chicken or a mouse on it, are they? on the national flag. I mean, they could do, but they don't tend to do that.
Is there an island in the Pacific like Saint sort of Barbados or somewhere like that that's got a mouse on their flag? I'm sure
Barbados.
Think it's Barbados, is it?
I don't know. I've never seen a mouse on a national flag. You know, they usually put these huge things like eagles and lions and big elephants and bears. You know, stuff like that. Big, strong things. They like to represent their country as being very, very big and powerful, rather than a mouse might represent their own thing.
Yes.
Right. Well. Talking about stuff tonight. I'm going to give you everyone's apologies. Right. Will said he can't be bothered to turn up tonight. No, that's not true. Will said he couldn't make it tonight because obviously he's got a family crisis. So he sent me that email. Right. Margaret's away. Right. No idea where David is. Right. Who else are we missing? That's
Andy.
Oh, Andy's going to turn up late. Right. Yeah. We're missing someone else, aren't we? Oh, Margaret. Right, we done Margaret. Margaret.
Yeah.
She wasn't doing well last
Andy,
time.
David, the Archbishop of Canterbury. That's 5. Yeah. Oh, and Neil Oliver. We forgot about him.
Lloyd George.
Lloyd George. Oh, hang on. Lloyd George is here. Look at that there.
Okay.
Judith handled my Lloyd George.
Oh.
Right, so no, so basically, I mentioned to Michelle about the live show or whatever in Cumbria, and she said, first time I heard about that. I said, oh, we'll go and see that. We'll go to Pendle on the way up. That's what I told her. So that was good. And I said, as long as we can get a McDonald's near Carnforth, we're happy with that. So that's fine. So, by the way, on the way, Anne, we'll drop in a McDonald's for you, Anne, because I know you'd appreciate it.
Oh.
There's no response to that.
I've been at McDonald's once, but I had a cup of coffee. I must say, I didn't have anything else.
That's bad, isn't it?
You're supposed to be vegetarian, aren't you?
I have a vegetarian McPlant, my love, my McPlant. So right, what I was thinking, one thing before we go on to the doings, right? Oh, buy this a bit of pasty. I thought I'd eat that. Before. So basically, there's food in between my keyboard. So I eventually, have anyone ever grown a beard? Right, Judith, have you ever grown a beard where you've actually got
not intentionally, no.
And you got food in there and you actually eat it? Right. Anne, you know this live show thingy, Cumbria. Like, what I was going to do, I was going to do like Lady of Pavlan Cave, the Mold Cape. We were going to do the Killeen Amphitheatre, right? But it's got to be something with great mystery. And I was thinking, if there's something archaeologically we could do from Cumbria, right? Which is a lot of mystery about, right? We can't do Claire because she's still a living being and what's in her basement. That would just not be acceptable. But we could, hey, Drina, right? What you could do, you could say, this is what we could do. Drina, just listen to this. Nobody needs to know, right? Drina, knock on Claire's door, right? And say, look, I got something interesting to show me in your house, right? So take Claire to your house, right? I can break into Claire's house and see what's in her basement.
Okay. You're on.
And what we could do, take photographs, and we could have that in the live show, right? And yeah. No, but honestly, if there's a subject that is sort of which would be like Cumbrian, which would really think people would be saying, oh my God, I don't want to hear about the Illicig pillar. Oh my God, I don't want to hear about the Mold Cape. I don't want to hear about anything else from Cymru Well. And suddenly we come up with this subject that enraptures people, right? Anyway, you can think about that. You can think about that. That's good. Right. So, right, we're going to go on to it now. So let's just get in. Otherwise, we'll be here all day. Right. So we're just going to look at the window. Right. Hopefully everything's fine. And hopefully this will work fine. If not, it's Roger's fault. Right. Okay. So, right. Oh, no, I just did it. There. Right. Okay, folks. What are you looking at on your screen?
Nothing much.
Nothing.
Some words.
Matt says Jimbo has started
A lot
screen
of black.
sharing.
There you go.
Oh, there we are.
Oh,
Yeah.
We're on.
Cymru. Archaeology Cymru. Archaeology community.
Yeah. So,
Heritage discovery.
yeah.
Continuing the legacy.
Yeah. Right. Actually, it's been updated since. There's a smaller trowel on there because it just like that trowel didn't look right. But anyway, the point is with all of this, right, is that with all your sort of stuff over the past few weeks, right, it's like what we're going to do is the name Archaeology Company will sort of fade sort of in the background, right? But because we like this community thing, we're now the Archaeology Community, which is still AC, both of them. So we've got community, heritage, discovery, continuing the legacy of Archaeology Company since 1995. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Marvelous.
Very nice.
And what we could do is have Drina, right? We could have it on one of Drina. We could have Drina having a T-shirt with this on, right? And Drina could prance down the streets, right? And she'll be mugged by Claire, who'll nick the T-shirt off her, right? And then another reason why Drina has to take Claire over to her house to box her ears in so we can look. Oh, right. Okay. We do love Claire. But anyway, look, so that's basically where we're going, right? Oh, the next Illicit pill has been completed. It's done. It's going to be with you in very shortly, right? So what I wanted to do, right? We're going to do a little. There's something that else I found other than this, but I wanted to do some of these tablets in London, right? I really thought, right, I want to do these tablets, yeah. So basically, this is a scene. This is something that you would not normally see, right? And the reason why, right, is that this is a typical tablet, and obviously, the wool that they've used to stitch it there is basically, modern, right? But the one thing about these tablets is they're absolutely fascinating. And what you do see is writing, right? You can actually see writing in the background. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a little bit of a description. And what I did in the week, I wrote off to the Museum of London, and I've got contact now with a certain Dr. Rebecca Redfern, who's a senior curator of Roman London, which is absolutely great. And so what I've got today is a look at these tablets, these amazing wooden tablets. And that is an actual Roman wooden tablet. It does still exist. It's there, right? So I wanted to sort of start off with some of these tablets, and then what we then get into a little bit deeper, right? We're going to go back to these in a moment. We're getting to something really deeper where suddenly that's the science shows up the writing. So we're going to look at this, and we're going to sort of describe it a little bit more and sort of really get into this. So this is what we're doing today. So, Judith, are you able to let Andy on?
Yeah, done it.
Oh my guys, do you know what, right? As much as we absolutely love Judith, right? We know that she can't do anything right. But for the first time ever, Judith has actually done something right. She's pressed a knob, and Andy's been let on. So there we go. So going back to what I was saying, so what I've got is, and I want to do this a lot more about this actually. I've got the excavation report of the Bloomsburg excavation site, and what I want to do is show you plans, sort of some tables, how important these tablets are, and they found over 400 of them, right? Obviously, probably not as much as Vindolanda, right? But these tablets are about the core of civilian and stroke military Roman era Britain. And the tablets that they've got are much older than the ones from Vindolanda. In fact, they're from just before AD 50, all the way through to the dying days of Roman era Britain in Britain, Roman era Britain. So we've got that. So the Romans used writing tablets to write letters, messages, notes, and drafts of documents. So these drafts of documents would eventually, because some of them would become official documents that needed to last for a long time. So the one thing about these tablets, right, is that people used to write in them with wax. Start again. There was a wax coating on here in the tablet itself. There was a wax coating on the one on the left, right? And they would write on it with a stylus. So what would occasionally happen if the wax was really thin? The stylus would go into the wood below, and you'd have a complete record of one of the last things that was written on this tablet before it was discarded. But anyway, thinking about these for themselves are not those permanent official records and contracts and legal documents. But what you do find is, as I've described, people have etched in so much into the wax that it's inscribed the wood underneath. Those official documents, like little bits of wood and parchment scrolls made from animal skins, most of them are decayed and gone, but lots of these tablets do survive. So tablets contained a layer of beeswax, which could be inscribed with a pointed stylus pen. Tablets could either be bound, something similar to this, together with leather, or fastened with metal binders on the outside. So once the inscription was no longer needed, the wax was heated, smoothed, and reused. But lots of these have been seen discarded in the context of London. And something like this, you can sort of squint your eyes, right? And you can actually see marks in the wood. Right, now the one thing about this type of wood looks like the type of thing that we used to use in school, right? And no, I didn't use wax tablets in school, but I can remember the desks used to look like this with loads of inscriptions on them, right? When I went to Romney Junior School many years ago. So when we think about these tablets, and we've got a really nice little bit of a history about a tablet, and obviously from the Museum of London, and lots of these tablets, as I say, from a wide date range. So we're going to look at one of these tablets now and give you a little bit of history. So interesting enough, that's the obverse, right? And that's the reverse side. That's the reverse side. And you can think that you can actually see stuff on there. There's something there, right? But not very clear unless you use modern technology. So that's what they've done with the Museum of London. There is one thing I would say, that they've not actually transcribed all these documents. There's well over 400 of them. And so what we've got is they've used different differentiations to actually show this cursive script. So going back just quickly, right? When you think about it, right, we've now got technology to understand what is there, right? But there's a problem with all of this, right? Is this the one sort of inscription that has made it through the wax, right? Is the one that we're going to read out. But for example, on this, right, you can clearly see that there's lots of different letters and capitals and cursive script. So what they've done, they've analyzed this one, and this is what you get as an end result. So scratched. So when you think about it, the layer of wax is really thin, right? So like me, when I'm writing, and if anyone gets a postcard off me, they will know that when they get a postcard off me, that I press really heavy. If you look at the other side, you can sort of see it, sort of the heavy writings come through. That's how I would write. So this would have had a layer of wax. And for Andy, these are all from London. So scratched onto a wax layer, the lettering on this Roman wooden writing tablet has survived. This is one sort of layer. This is one letter, out of all the other little bits of stuff on here, this is one that survived, complete, more or less. So now this is really interesting to sort of try and get to grips with the sense of Roman era Britain. And there's a few facts. There's a few really interesting facts that we're going to talk about now, right? So one fact. It is a deed of sale for a young enslaved woman called Fortunata. Now, that's really interesting. That's the other fact. Second fact, Fortunata, we've got a name. So we know it's a sale deed, right? And we know it's for somebody known as Fortunata, right? Now, third fact, she's described as a Diablintia, meaning a member of the Diablintias people from northern France. So if we want to say a fourth fact, the Diablintia people from northern France. So what we've got a sale, we've got a girl, you know, we're looking at some really interesting stuff. And again, this points the existence of slaves being used in Roman era Britain. That's really important. So there's something really massively else important about this. Fortunata was bought for, wait for it, 600 silver denarii. Now, if anyone reads my Romans in South Wales book, they will know that 600 silver denarii is the equivalent of 2 years' pay for a legionary soldier, right? So it's a hell of a lot of money. So when you think about it, if you want to equate the value of that girl, right, that enslaved woman, right, you can think that she's probably worth about £30,000 if a legionary's on basically their wage packet £15,000 a year or something like that. Maybe they're on £20,000 a year, but relatively, you know, quite a valuable piece of property. Now, there's another fact here. So I don't know how many facts we're on so far. We're on fact 6. She was bought by now this is interesting. She was bought by an enslaved man called Vigentus. So there was a slave who was born by another slave, right, who worked for the government and who was in turn owned by another enslaved government worker called Montanus. So how many facts have we got there? So we've got a government worker who's enslaved called Montanus, who owns another slave called Vigentus, and Vigentus owns Fortunata. Now, in what world are we living in where slaves can actually own slaves? Now, if this is a come away fact from today, right, that's something really interesting. A slave can own a slave, can own a slave, right? Have you ever heard anything like that before? I haven't.
Carl, it's not that they were just sort of looking after them and directing the work. They were actually related, were they?
No, these were basically, when you think about it, as a government worker. So in fact, they say,
supervising.
if we want to look at it this way, Roger, right, you can have a Greek person, right, who's enslaved, who's working for a family, who has the overall sort of flow of the house and can do whatever they like, right? But that person's still enslaved, right? So we've got right. Levels of enslavement here. That's what we're talking about, Roger. We've got levels of enslavement. So certain slaves can keep slaves who can keep slaves.
Didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that. This is. I'm glad you questioned that, because this is like really weird. It's like it's something else. It's like another level of, you know. I don't know how many facts we're on so far, but the wording on the tablet says Vigentus, assistant slave of Montanus, the slave of the August emperor, and sometime assistant slave of Secundus. So I don't know how many levels we've got there, but has bought. So it basically says has bought and received by Manicipium, the girl Fortunata, or by whatever name she is known, by nationality a Diablintinia, from Albicanus, which is basically France, for 600 denarii. And I think that that's really interesting. The reason why one of the things that really gets me tonight is that I found a press report, and I keep going on about this. I found a press report, and I mentioned this to Rebecca, and I said, look, I found this press report years ago, and I haven't been able to find it since. But in the newspaper, it specifically said that they found a tablet in London, right? And the press report said about a land deed, right? And she said that she searched through all her records, she can't actually find it. So I'm going to find that press report, and when I find it, I'm going to say, there you go. It was in the newspaper. Unfortunately, this goes back to back onto my little soapbox. When I mentioned, for example, you get there's so much stuff being done in archaeology at this minute that we're not exactly on top of it, right? There's just so much, right? And we've really got to, come back a little bit and stop some of the excavation that we're doing. Here it goes. So this girl sold for 600 denarii, and that the girl in question is transferred in good health, that she is warranted not to be liable to wander or run away, but that if anyone lays claim to the girl in question or to any share in her, and there's a break in the tablet there, as you can see, in the wax tablet, which has written and sworn by the genius of the Emperor Caesar. And that's basically it. So when you think about this is something really, really interesting that sort of paints a different picture of, in regards to Roman era Britain, right? And how this in a way affected how people were enslaved, right? So you could argue today, right? And if I can explain this a little bit better, right? Today we are technically, in the eyes of the law, right? All of us belong to the king, right? All our land, all our homes, everything that we own in Britain today technically still belongs to the king, right? Everything, right? If you look into our land deeds, it basically says, right, that the freehold that we own on our properties is held for X amount of time, and that freehold then reverts back to the crown, right? And that's a fact. Everything, I think it's like in the thousands, but technically, and when you think about that, technically we're slaves to a king. We're serfs, right? And that's today, right? So if you didn't know that, that's fact. But when you look at this in a Roman context, you can see why there's different layers of slaves. So in other words, when you think about it, the emperor is the main guy, right? And then there's layers of who belongs to who, and so on, right? So in many ways, if you go into modern day society in Britain, if you're born here, you're not a free person. And this is how this might be explained. So what I thought, I'm going to take a little bit of a break now in the lecture. I'm not going off and doing anything, right? So last week I did promise you. I said I understand. The Museum of London is really interesting because they've actually closed the old Museum of London and they're opening a new Museum of London in Smithfield Market. They've actually bought the whole thing, and it's now going to be the new museum. So the old museum's moving to there, and they've got to move everything. So I was aware of this, and I said, I understand you're very busy with the move at the moment, but I contact you on chance. Basically, I'm an archaeologist, blah blah blah, teaching this period, and I've got you into looking at Roman London wooden tablets of around AD 50, and lots of the stuff that you can actually quickly find online are really not telling me the story. So we've got a couple more images today, actually more than a couple, which will give you a little bit more of a taste for these tablets. Now, this is really interesting. The next image is really interesting. I want to take a break before we actually go back to this, and we go back to this Londinium, right? And I wanted to distract myself in the middle. I wanted to break this up a little bit because I was going through a lot of paperwork in the week, right? And this is one of those images, right? And this was a postcard. And I thought I'd take a photograph of this, and and this is the point that I need to say something else. So we had a few donations given to us to buy a caravan in West Wales, right? Which we actually bought, right? So very soon, that caravan will be a little archaeological space, right? from when we got somebody working here on site as well. But in the meantime, it'll be a little archaeological space that there'll be loads of finds that I'll be working on, right? Anyone's welcome to come in West Wales, and because the caravan actually belongs to you guys as well. So we've got this new caravan, and it means that I can actually start working through stuff. So what's this linked to this? It means that I'm going through lots of paperwork, and there's lots of things I'm getting rid of, and there's lots of things that I'm seeing. And I just thought this was really, really interesting, because it's nothing to do with what we're doing, but it's to do with interpretation. So everything that we do in archaeology is how we interpret things, how we interpret tablets. But when we look at something very much like this, it's individual words that we're interpreting, this cursive script created by stylus, and this is actually real archaeology. But then when you look at something like this, and this is the antiquarian called Stukely, right? This is how he sees the historical landscape. This is how the landscape spreads out. And we got Silbury Hill, for example, yeah, and we got Avebury in the distance, and this is in 1723. And the one thing that I do know is that our landscape is continually changing. For example, a month ago, I was driving around the bend, right, and there was this really nice long barn from about the 1600s, right, maybe a little bit later, right, and I drove around the road. It's completely been removed. It's gone. A piece of our history completely gone from the landscape, because where I live in Cymru, West Wales, they removed the history and it's gone, and this is happening today still, right? Again, this is linked to this image when you're thinking that sometimes people have recorded things in the past that are no longer there today, right? And this is really, really interesting. And this place here, right? All these stones here, I can basically say that hardly any of this exists today. Most of these stones have been removed, right? And there you go. You've got this sort of avenue here, right, leading all the way to Avebury, right? So this bit, most of this is gone. There's only one or two of these stones in existence. So even as we start to look about history, and as we start to understand history, so much is being lost. And then you go to this image. Now, after I thought this was absolutely brilliant, right? So as I'm looking more and more into Hadrian's Wall to deliver more and more about Hadrian's Wall, right? This is in Denton, and at the Esso petrol station in Denton. And this is, I'm sure Denton's in Northumberland. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a tiny little bit of Hadrian's Wall at the petrol station in Denton, right? That you can still see today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you that again. I'm going to do a little bit more research on that little bit of wall at Denton, and I'm going to say this apparently is the smallest section of Hadrian's Wall still surviving. But then again, there's another bit near Wall's End, which is actually not Wall's End, another little bit of wall, right? So you know, there's all these little bits, and one thing that I'm starting to think more and more and more, right, that there's no comprehensive book that looks at every single piece of Roman stone remains in Britain, right? As Judith knows, I started doing a series of it online, and and if I'm still alive at 70, I'm gonna go around and I'm gonna do that book, right? So that's 20 years ahead. I'm not doing it now, right? Anyway, so this was all that we've got now leads me on to this, right? So as I'm writing, and I'm basically saying, this is from Rebecca, it says, I've gone through the monograph, and there are a few that may fit the description and interpretation. None of the newspaper articles I could find online give the tablet number or enough detail to find an exact match. So I'm hoping to find that newspaper cutting. So what I've done with this monograph, I've looked and chosen some really nice images to look at tonight, to feed the picture, and for us to understand a lot more about this excavation, the Bloomsburg excavations in London, right, which has given us these tablets, and how these tablets fit in with the chronology, right? So I thought that would be doing a little bit more scientific stuff today. But this itself there, you can clearly say Londinio, right? Roman London's first voices, writing tablets from the Bloomsburg excavations, 2010 to 2014. So when you think about the Bloomsburg building, right? And I don't know if you can remember Adam, right? But it's probably Adam's going to be back sooner or later, because we've had another person rejoining us. Like, if you can remember Dell, right? He's rejoined us as well on a Wednesday, so that's absolutely brilliant. But he went to the Bloomsburg Mithras temple. Right? So when you think about it, they've moved really fast in studying the archaeology in regards to these tablets, bits of wood. And this is the first reference to Londinio, 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 or you could basically, there's a missing D, or Londinio. But so Londinio. So Londinio. So that is really interesting, because there's nothing like this in regards to Hadrian's Wall. There's no tablet that says this is Hadrian's Wall, right? This is Londinio. This is London. So that's really, really important. So what we've got, and I thought I would start off with this as we sort of come in and out of tablets tonight, right? So this is really, really interesting, in that this really points towards when you get the stylus, right? It's almost as if the grain of the wood, as you're sort of etching into the wood, right, and you're sort of forcing yourself into the wood, right? What the stylus is hitting is the top bits, the ridge of the wood, right? So this could be somebody by the name of Labby, right? And this person is also, there it is, Londinio or Landinio. So we got another one. We're obviously in London, aren't we? London exists by name. Londinium. So it's not actually Londinium, it's Londinio at this stage, right? And we're talking about lots of these tablets. And I'm not going to say that all of these tablets date from AD 50, right? Lots of them don't. Lots of them are different ages, right? But again, this is a really, really nice story. So that's what we're talking about, right? Yes, you can buy these on the internet, right? It would be great to have 10 of these in the car, right? Written with loads of stuff, right? And the police pulls me over one day and said, right, I want your documents. So I hand in these things. What the hell are these? And I said, I still use them. Anyway, so that there is a stylus, and you can buy these on the internet, right? And what that bit on the end is, that if you've written into this and you don't like what you've written, you sort of rub it out, right? But there's a catch. There's a catch. If you're a bit heavy writing like me, that stylus is going to rip into the wood underneath, and that's exactly what's going on. So some of these would be bound on the outside. So again, we're so lucky in the context of Roman era Britain to have these surviving today, right? And I'm so pleased to actually bring you this. And again, talking about size, these are not a foot long, right? These are like 6 inches long, right? 6 inches by about 3 or 4 inches, right? And you could say about 2 inches thick, right, as you fold it over. So this thing folded over, right, and you just tuck the stylus in the middle and you just bound the outside. I know when I was a child, you used to have that thing that that magic writing screen. Can you remember that? Yeah, remember that? So basically, you had this magic writing screen, right, and you pulled something and all the writing would be gone, right? You don't get them anymore, but this you could say that this is based on something like this. So again, over 400 examples of these actually being found, right? So this is really interesting. What I haven't done is I haven't gone nuts in looking at 400 documents, right? But what we can do is we can translate this. So to the naked eye, there's not a lot to see, right? There is a letter there. There are bits of lettering here, right? And obviously the bits of lettering that we're going to sort of look at, right? And what you can see, you can actually see some fainter letters, right? You can actually see letters on top of letters. So this little tablet's been used by a, 2, 3, 4 times, right? And also when you think about it, it's just like initially, you know what it's like writing a diary. I write a diary, right? The first when you first write in a diary, the lettering is perfect, right? So you're going to write lightly on this, right? And none of this is going to survive in the wax, right? But what's going to survive is that when you've had it for about a week, right? And the wax is sort of running out, you just sort of really scrape into it, right? So interesting enough, this wood itself, there we go. This is a description. It's from a silver fir. Interesting. So it's basically saying incomplete, but preserving. And this is what it's saying: preserving one end with a wide V notch midway between 2 hinge holes and part of both sides. So it's describing, right? Hang on, mate, we've gone the wrong way. It's describing what's left of this. There's a V notch there, and that's really interesting. That there is interesting because you get a little bit of leather string, right? And that you'd have 2 plates as you've got with this, right? There'd be a notch, and then you'd have a bit of leather tied on the outside, right? And that would keep the whole thing together, right? Anyway, back to what it's saying, right? The text is not multiple except for a few corrections or traces of earlier drafts. So yeah, as I said, there is other stuff there, right? I said it might be other people, but who knows what's what. And that information that survives, there's a lot of information on it, right? So when you think about it, there's a lot of information that's actually survived on this part of the tablet, and we haven't got all of it. So it's dating from the 8th of January in AD 57. It's to do with Tibullus, the freedman of Venustus, right? So Venustus writes that he owes Gratus, the freedman of Spurius, 105 denarii. So all of this is fascinating stuff, right? So interesting enough. Now, there's another point to be made here, and I'm going to make it when we've read that first line, right? It goes, in the consulship of Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus. In other words, when Nero was emperor, right? That's when he is, right? Now, that's interesting. There's some interesting consulship, right? Emperors were still seen as consuls from the day of Julius Caesar, right? Because Julius Caesar was a consul, right? In the days of the Old Republic, there were 2 consuls, right? There would be a consul there would be 2 consuls. If one consul went nuts and the other one wasn't nuts, then the other one could sort out the other consul, and these consulships would last a year, right? But by the time we get to emperors, these emperors have got a divine right. So interesting enough, Nero, Claudius, from Claudius, who reigned before Nero. Everyone put Caesar in there, right? Germanicus. You remember Germanicus? Germanicus is the father of Caligula. So, and obviously the first emperor, Octavian Augustus. So you put all these as a title, right? So in other words, you are the emboldened embodiment of Julius Caesar, the first emperor Augustus, right? Germanicus, who was assassinated by Tiberius, and Claudius, right? There's no mention of Tiberius on there. Interesting enough. It goes on for the second time, and Lucius Calpurnius Piso on the 6th day before the Ides of January, the 8th of January, AD 57. So all of this is really, really interesting, right? And one thing about all of this is the lettering there. Germanicus, Nero has been emperor for 2 years by this, right? And this is how you work out emperors, right? and you work out emperors by saying, right, January the 8th in the second year of that emperor, right? It wouldn't be the 8th of January AD 57. It would be the second year of that emperor, Nero. This is how they dated stuff. So you're a bit buggered if the Roman emperor was assassinated after 3 weeks, right? Anyway, so Tibullus, the freedman of Venustus, have written and say that I owe Gratus, the freedman of Spurius, 105 denarius from the price of the merchandise which has been sold and delivered. This money I am due to repay him or the person whom the matter will concern, blah, blah, blah. And it's gone. Right, but we haven't got everything. But again, thinking about the context of this, and this document is a very, very powerful document, and obviously made from silver fir, which would have had to have been introduced into Britain. Now, looking at maps, we all love maps, don't we? And this is really, really interesting. And why it's really, really interesting, if anyone knows London, Bloomsbury, by the Cannon Street station, right, and Bank Station, interesting enough, the Bloomsbury building is that sort of red area there in the city of London, beating heart of the city of London. Map showing the location of Bloomsbury, the offices there, and other sites referred to in the volume in this work that we're talking about today. Insets showing location in relation to the modern city of London and the Thames. The reason why the Bloomsbury excavations are so important is associated with the River Walbrook. And the River Walbrook itself is a fascinating source of archaeological data from the Roman era. The River Walbrook would have just flowed through the sort of red box at one stage, right? Before it was all filled in and culverted, right? And again, when you look at that, it gives you an idea of some of the areas, right, which have been excavated in regards to the city of London. And if we go, oh, hang on a minute, we went to, so what you can clearly see there, right, that's interesting because can you see my hand on there, right? And you can see the word London Wall, right? Hang on a minute, the lamb wants to give me a cuddle, guys. Give it to me. Give it to me. I can teach while I've got a sheep in my hands. Right, here we go. Here we go. So what you can clearly see, right? You can see that there, my cursor, and it says London Wall. That's where the London Wall is, right? And when you think about it, this here, the Bloomsbury site, is in a beating heart of Roman era London. So this is really, really interesting. And why this is really, really interesting, this plan, right? It tells you a number of the factors that I mentioned, right? And in these areas specifically, these are areas that they specifically excavated in regards to the Bloomsbury excavations. And you can clearly see that the darker purple ones, they went down 7 meters deep in the archaeology, right? And that tells us a great deal, right? So so what's happened here is some of the other areas, right? You can clearly see where they excavated, none of the archaeology survived. So in some areas, archaeology of 7 meters survived. In other areas, what you do have is you have 2 meters surviving and 1 meter surviving. And what this means, recorded in section only, this means that these areas were probably not sort of threatened with full destruction and demolition, right, or anything like that. And these areas themselves were actually, they only needed to take samples and sort of record some of it, right? And as you know, as some of you will know, right, and I do believe that this must be the area of the Temple of Mithras, which had been removed in the 1950s and had been taken back to the Bloomsbury site because the Bloomsbury offices wanted the original Roman Mithras temple back on its original location. Because what happened when they were excavating here in the 1950s, they found this Temple of Mithras, and the owner said, "I don't want a bloody Temple of Mithras where this is. I'm going to demolish it." And the Corporation of London at the time said, "Oh, we'll move it to another site," right? So they moved the temple to another site, and then back in the 2010, they decided to move the temple back. So this is where it gets confusing. I do believe I'm right on this. So the Mithras temple that was moved down the road, right, was placed onto the site of a Roman bathhouse, right, which, and now the Roman bathhouse, I think they re-excavated it to put the Mithras temple back here, right? And this is what happens when you move archaeological sites. And there you go, Walbrook. There it is. It says Walbrook there. There it is nicely. So this is what we're talking about. This is how the archaeology is, and the different levels. And I'm going to explain a little bit about this. What sometimes, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, right? But what you can see the remains of this sort of office block structure that was actually built here in the 1950s. And I'm going to say this as well, that if this would been built in the Roman period, right, this building would be still standing, right? But what happened was that they demolished this building from the 1950s. Was the quality of cast concrete and the metal had just decayed, right? So they needed to bring it down and build that Bloomsburg structure, right, which has all the newspapers and all the book publishing. That's all there, right? And one thing I would explain is I can't really show it on here because I think this is into the latter stages of the excavation, with only some of the archaeology needing to be excavated. The way they do this stuff in London is as follows. If they find a really nice bit of archaeology in London, like a mosaic, right, they will discuss with the developer, are we going to keep this? And the developer might say, yeah, keep it. We'll incorporate this bathhouse or whatever into the structure. Right, the developer might say, I don't want to keep it, and the archaeologists say, please keep it, we'll give you loads of kisses, right? And they cover it with a membrane, right? And they change the plan, right? But the way they excavate is that they may excavate this bit over here, right? And then the developer says, right, when you finish working this bit, well, I put membrane across the site and protect the archaeology. It's going to be part of the development, but in the process, right, we need to move all the rubbish from this bit of the archaeological excavation over to here, right? You can excavate this, and then at one stage, because at this stage, what they're doing, they're already developing the site with the archaeologists in mind and the archaeology in mind. So it's never all one thing. Like in the good old days, what the archaeologists used to do. If any of you ever went to the archaeological excavations in York, right? I remember going there when I was a child, right? And when I was a child, 14 more like, and basically when my granddad Nobber took us to York, right? Took me to York, right? We were there for a few days, and what they would do in York, they would excavate whole areas, right? And then they would either fill it all in or demolish it or take it away, and then build the tower blocks, right? But they didn't do that with the Jorvik Viking Centre. They actually decided to keep all the archaeology and put the shops above. And that's how you get the Jorvik Viking Centre at Copygate. And you can see the archaeology. I would say that things are changing a lot in British archaeology. They're changing a lot. They're not changing a lot in Cymru, Wales, where if we find a Roman villa or mosaics or a medieval site in Wales, we usually demolish it and destroy it. In England, things have changed. They usually preserve it in England, like for example in Colchester. There's so much in Colchester being preserved, and it's so good that the English are actually preserving their history and archaeology, and that's something to be proud of, guys. Now this is really, really interesting, right? All of this is really, really interesting to me. I've still got the lamb on my lap, right? So this is when we've got all this, and we look at 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 all this archaeology that we're going to look at, right? This is, we're going to go back to that, right? It says all these phases here. So the first phase is where they found 4 tablets, and sort of phase 3, they found 62 tablets, and altogether they found 409 tablets, right? And where we've got all this phasing here, unstratified and so on, and so on, right? So if we go back again where we were, and we look at, for example, this. So this is really, really interesting. So what we've got is, this is very precise, right? And the reason why this is very precise in the good old days, I think some of you'll know what I'm talking about. You look at a plan of a church and it says phase 1, 2, and 3, right? And that's all you've got. This is a little bit more complicated than that, right? And the reason why this is more complicated than that is that the phases are divided up into sub-phases, early and late, right? And what you've got this sort of first natural layer, natural prehistoric layer, right? And then what you have down here, right? You get this, you get this sort of era 2, and there's phase 1, 2, phase 3, and there's more phases, right? So all of this is really, really great because around here, right, where the cursor is, this takes us to the time of Boudica. And what you can see there is if you take the cursor across, it shows this period here, which is AD 60, 62. This is the rebuilding phase of Londinium, down to Boudica. And you go down here, right, and you can see more building. You can see all these different windows of building. So all this period here between, it says phase 1 all the way down to sort of because it gets very confusing. So if you follow my cursor, just ignore what it says there, follow the cursor. So you go down to roughly AD 65 to AD 70. There's different periods, there's different times when they're building, right? And then this is when the big stuff is happening in Londinium, or Londinio, let's call it Londinio, from AD 43 all the way through to AD 65. I did say, did I not, that the earliest archaeological evidence for Londinio, right, is AD 45, but there's something really interesting. Why are they saying AD 43? Something that I'm not really understanding in this at this minute. So then what you've got now, this is, let's just go down to this bit here, right? So we move across this sort of, you've got this here, right? And you move all the way down. It says 4, phase 2. And it says AD 125 and AD 135. There's a lot of burning in Londinium. What is this? What does this mean? What does this mean, this date here? What is going on? And the reason why that's a little bit obsessed by that is that we don't have something said that there's a Boudican rebellion going on in Londinium in AD 125. Boudica's long dead. This is over 60 years later. What does this mean? They haven't exactly dated it properly because it's within a period of 10 years, but there's something so interesting, right? And you've got all this other building from 125 into this period of 220. Now that is so good because I would say, not really hand on heart, bit blasé, but the greatest period of Roman era London is just about to come to an end, AD 220. Because then you've got this weird period, this strange period in the Roman world. And the reason why you've got this strange period in the Roman world into the probably about 180, I would say that that's now the decline in the Roman world, right? I always feel that this period here, then you go to this 6, phase 2, to AD 300. That's odd. Now, what is happening is quite interesting, right? Because suddenly, now this is something that you will come across, and maybe I might not say it again for a while, but I'm going to say it. Look at all the activity from AD 43. Look at all these individual moments, contexts, layers, whatever you want to call it, from AD 43 all the way through to AD 300. And suddenly, right, these phases and periods and strata are not really, there's not a great deal in the way of things changing, right? So we go a long period where not much is changing, right? All the way from AD 300, AD 340. And the interesting thing as well is, right, and let's just let's bugger up your minds a little bit. The way this works is like this. When archaeologists are excavating, the first archaeology that they come to is the latest Roman stuff. The terminus antiquem, right? This latest stuff here, right? This latest medieval time, the termus antiquem is here, right? And then you go down reading all these layers. So something's going on, something's happened in Londinium in AD 450, and that's the Roman era in London gone. But all this chronology, all this information is being found at the Bloomsburg excavation site. Moving on. Now look at this. We've got a few unusual little bits and bobs like this. And what I want to do is come back to this document again, right? Whether we'll do it next week, I don't know. We'll just see how it goes, right? But a stave-built cask. And one of the things that I need to do is go away from the Bloomsburg site, not today, another time. What I need to do, stave-built cask. And what we mean by that, staves, individual staves, and this is bound, right? And it says with the headboards removed, right? So obviously there's two boards on either end of a cask, right? And look at that there, reused as a well lining. Now we see a lot about this. So in other words, what they're doing, they're digging down into the ground, right? They're filling these with these stave-built casks, right? From the bottom of the well all the way through. So the line is welled. The line is well. The well is lined, right? And it's sort of looking at that, and you've got the scale. You've got the scale in there, right? And it's saying that's half, so it's about a meter across. So what's happening is as you're digging the well, you're gonna dig everything out of the well, right? You're gonna put these open-ended casks in there, right? So as you put one cask in, a little bit of a backfill around the outside of the cask, right? And then you put the other cask in, a little bit more backfill, and then you've got a well. The Romans were quite cleanliness orientated in regards to their wells. And I wanted to do a little bit more about this next week, right? We've got an axe there, for example, on the right. I want to do more of this next week, maybe about the week after. But the one mystery object at the bottom, again, mystery object on the left, again, more for this next week. We're going to keep that there. We're going to keep you floating, right? But look at that axe there. Look at that axe head that they've actually found in the archaeological excavations. And then look at this. So what they've done, right? There's lots of these, on display, right? And look at that there. Stylus writing tablet. And it said made of spruce with traces of wax surviving on the recessed face. Wax itself. Now, all the lines in there are the wax as they've sort of gone off and cured, and they're starting to crack. That's not stylus marks. That's how the wax has gone off. And just think about it, made of spruce, right? Interesting enough, spruce. So not a native British species. So the nearest that we've got is Scots pine. So it's been introduced. So again, as it may have originally appeared, traces of earlier text have been removed from this, right? However, I think what they're trying to say there is this is probably the last writing on this tablet, right? But as you remove the wax, underneath there'll be lots of other writings and different things written in there, right? And by the way, this is sending the sheep off to sleep. So if anyone else has gone to sleep tonight, right? I know what the sheep feels like. So anyway, so what we've got the description there, right? Taurus to Macrinus, his dearest lord, greetings. And can I just chuck something else in as well, right? This is going to really muck up your heads, right? I've got a smile on my face here because it's going to blow some of your minds. Did you know that lots of aristocrats in the Roman world were actually called knights? Yeah, they were called knights, as in medieval knights. They were called knights. Sorry to chuck that in now. I know I've blown your head with that one. It goes on to say, know that I am in good health, which I desire that you are too. Oh my God, I got to use that line in a text. I've got to. Love it. Andy, if you get a bit of illness soon, right, and you get well again, right, you know that I'm going to send that text to you. Job done. when Catarius had come and had taken the beasts of burden away, investments which I cannot replace in 3 months. I was at the house of Diademinus yesterday, but he, Catarius, arrived unexpectedly for a single day. So when you think about this, right, you're thinking, hang on a minute, that's a bit short, but these are two face wax tablets, right? So in other words, there would be another part of the wax tablet that it obviously hasn't survived, right? And you can clearly see that the wax is not it's not a thick layer of wax either. If you look at the section, it's quite a thin layer of wax, right? So obviously that's how we're putting all these things together. You know, it's just, I don't know if it's to you, in a way, this looks so familiar. It does to me, because, and one thing that I can remember when I was they used to do a lot of really good educational television programs when I was a child, right? And there was one about Roman wax tablets, right? It was like a reconstruction thing, and it was great. And they showed these wax tablets and styluses, right? But I used to think there was really thick layers of wax in here, but there's not. There's a really thin layer, right? Beeswax, and that's how you can get the stylus marks on the wood below. And again, the wax in there, isn't that absolutely amazing, right? We might actually go to a little bit of a break soon, right? But look at all these little things, examples of iron styluses, right? With copper alloy inlaid bands and plated real molding. Really good description there. And a spatula dating to roughly about the AD 60s, AD 70s. So these styluses are the items that are actually using to incise into the wax, right? And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bank on this one. What you're seeing on the screen is scale, right? So if you think about a big pen, right, the one near the spatula, that one there, that's probably the length of a big pen minus sort of a bit of it, right? So that gives you an idea of length, right? It's a really nice stylus, and lots. I'm sure the emperor would have had a gold one, maybe, don't know. So here we go. So what we've got here, maybe what we're going to do is we'll do this, right? And there we go. The individual diptych used for correspondence, right? And there we go. That's on the outside of the wood, right? Londinio. And this is, so there we go. We got the binding cord. It's the outside. These are two outer faces. So tablet 1 and tablet 2. So you've got two sides of a document, in other words. So if you want to get to grips with this, so you've got a piece of paper today, right? So you'd write on one side and you'd write on the other side, right? So that's what we're saying, right? Except there's two wooden plates, right? And there's wax. And then what we have there, and there we have. So we've got tablet 1, tablet 2, the first bit of the letter, page 1, second bit of the letter, page 2. When I say letter, sounds very common. Tablet, but obviously one side and the other side. Schematic reconstruction of the diptych, a pair of standard type tablets hinged together, used for correspondence, right? So what we specifically got there is how this whole thing's worked, right? So the diptych used for correspondence, right? And that's the name of it. So again, it's a shame we haven't got complete letters, but we've got enough, and we've got names, and we know who's in London, and the dates, and all these other things, right? So I've got the lamb coffin now. So what we are going to do, we've got lots to go through still. We've got all of these things. Look at all these. We've got the Walbrook. We've got more plans. We've got lots of things to still go through tonight. So I think what we'll do is we're going to take a break. And if I get back to where I was, the diptych, and again, this will give you an idea, right? And when it says unstratified, right, that means that tablets that have not been found in layers that are so basically, if it's not been found in layer from AD 50, right, or AD 200, right? We don't know what layer it belonged to. That's what unstratified means. And if you ever go field walking, the artifact's going to be called unstratified because you don't know what layers they come from because they've been found on the surface. So we've got 409 found in total. We're going to come back to that after the break. So anyway, good that Andy joined us tonight, which is absolutely fabulous. And I can say that we've got a few images to go through still. So I'm going to, whilst we've got the break now, I'm going to run out into the field after we've had some questions. And Michelle will probably do me a cup of tea in between feeding the lamb. Oh, go on. You know you want to see the lamb. Right. There's the lamb. Is it?
No.
And this is this little lamb is called Snowdrop, right? She's so intelligent. I don't know if I told you. I was teaching on Wednesday, right? And did I tell you about the gummies, right? That I've got a box, a cardboard box, and I've got a plastic container in there, right? And this one managed to get the lid off the box and managed to undo the plastic lid and is starting to eat the gummies. So there we go. Go on, Michelle. You can have our little Snowdrop. Right. But who are we going to... There's a few people away today. Will's away. David's away. Margaret's away. The Pope's away. Right. Neil Oliver's not here. Right. Anne, anything you want to say?
Well, there were one or two things.
Please do.
One of the things was almost as he put it up, it looked familiar to me. It wasn't quite. When I first went to school, which was a very long time ago, we wrote on slate, which had a wooden, I suppose, to protect the edge. So it looked familiar, although it wasn't. But I thought that was, interesting that the design was the same, even though it was different materials.
Oh my God! Hang on a minute. When you say hang on a minute, I can vaguely remember writing on slates because when I was a child, I'm sure they still had things like that. And yeah, I can remember there was a shop nearby, and it was like well, the little miniature blackboards, weren't they?
Yes, with a chalk.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what we had, because I mean I'm a lot older than you when I started school. It was about 1940, so a very long time ago. But that was the first thing. And the other thing I wanted to ask was, what do you have any idea what proportion of the population, the Roman population, could read and write? Because I mean that's we're talking about writing and things. Was it all just officialdom, or could people generally, or some, not everybody would, but there might be a proportion that could read and write, which wasn't to do with officialdom?
Can I answer that in a weird way? Right. Right. Okay. I was looking at about the fact that the Romans had newspapers, right, but not in the modern sense, right? So
yeah.
What would happen is that edicts would be carved in a street, and they basically said, right, that's the edict announcement for today, or they would have town criers, right? Now, I don't want to get political, but there's this guy there's this satirical comedian, right, that if I mention his name, you're not gonna. It's not Tommy Robinson, but there's a satirical comedian online, right? And I only watch his stuff, right? Because that's where I get my news, because it's almost as if he's on the nail every time I watch him, right? And I think he's great. That's my newspaper. So the point is with this is, do you actually need the written word if you've got people in the street saying this is going to happen, right? That's your newspaper. newspaper, right? When you're talking about reading your news online, it's the same as somebody broadcasting it to you, right? Now the answer is, could people read and write? Well, what was the majority of people who could read and write? The answer is that we're in dangerous territory, right? We're presuming that before the Roman period, right, nobody had any literacy in Britain, right? Judith knows what I'm talking about. Can we be 100% sure that people had no sense of writing before the Roman era in Britain? And with little bits of evidence that come out, the answer is I can't be 100% sure. Because I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story, right? I've told everybody this before. I went into Michelle's. Go on, hang on a minute, right? Hang on, I got to taste the baby's bottom a minute. Oh, I just had all the gumph, thanks to you. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, it's fine. Just had a load of bloody used milk, right? Thanks for that. Anyway, it's nice. Right. Anyway, I went into the tomb of Mice Howe, right, and I was with a group of people. You know, we had one of our first trip to Orkney, right, and everyone went out, and the female guide, she said, "Can you stay in here, love?" And I thought my luck was in, right, and everyone was outside in the pouring rain. She said, "I've got something to show you," and oh my God, I was in my element, right, and she said, "Come in this dark place here," she said. "Shine the torch on you," and she said, "This is something that we can't show the tourists, right? These are not the Viking inscriptions, runic inscriptions. These look like inscriptions that actually come from the Neolithic period. This actually looks like writing that we're starting to discuss on Orkney, right? So that answers your question in a way. If we had literacy in Britain in some forms, right, then it makes it easier to understand the reading of
I
Latin.
probably wasn't even thinking of Britain. I was thinking of the Romans and their. I mean,
No,
I did
no.
read a book where even slaves were taught to read when they were, you know.
No. What I'm getting at is that if you've already got people who are literate, right, and you get another civilization coming in that are also literate, it makes those existing people able to take that literacy just like that. It's not just basically saying, right, everybody, here's a load of books, start reading. Well, it's not going to happen overnight. But if you've already got a tradition of literacy, which we're told 90% of historians are going to say there's no history of literacy in Roman era Britain, pre-Roman era Britain, right? But if there was, and this is a little bit of evidence coming out, right, this changes the game. So the answer is, if you want to think, all right, then most people in Britain weren't able to read or write because there's no tradition of literacy in Roman era Britain before.
Well, I mean, I would think that was probably true of the Romans as well.
Yeah, but
the majority couldn't read and write.
But then again, if you look at it in that context, right, Britain may have been extremely literate, right? But and then that answers your question. Then they were very literate, but we still got that problem with. And okay, right. There's another thing, right? Let's just do it, right? Where's it? Right? Okay. There's a book here, right? There's a book here which is called Britannia Romana: Roman Inscriptions and Roman Britain, right? There's thousands of Roman inscriptions in Britain. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of them. There's not one or two. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of them, right? There are loads of inscriptions associated with Hadrian's Wall alone. There's inscriptions with the quarries. You know, if people, when you go into this context, right? Why are there so many inscriptions in Roman era Britain when supposedly nobody could read or write in Britain beforehand, right? And there was not much literacy in the Roman era. I think that there was a lot more literacy in Roman era Britain than meets the eye. That's the answer.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Drina, babe, go for it.
No, I haven't got anything to ask. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Okay. What about you, Judith, we want something from Judith to say because Judith is as controversial as it gets.
Oh, well,
Go on, Judith.
something happened about 400
No.
AD, didn't it? Well, there was a certain person that was alleged to have fought the Romans in around about 400 AD. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. No, say no more.
What? Who fought with the Romans or not against them?
Against them. One of the King Arthurs was allegedly to be around in about 400
Oh no,
AD.
not one of them. Oh my God!
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, there were fires. Apparently, there were fires round about then. Could he have set fire to something and chased people away? I don't know.
I don't know. There's a film.
We'll never know, will we?
Yeah, exactly. What the hell happened then? Right. Okay then. Anything from you, Andy?
Something to remember is also that not all fires are a result of.
Andy, your sound is really bad.
If it doesn't get to the road.
Can you hear me now?
Only just only slightly. Well, I'm going to put my head to the computer. Go on.
Yeah, not all fires are a result of violence, of course. They can be accidental.
Yes.
Like the Great Fire of London. I forget what it was now. Not to worry, that's all right.
Okay, your mic's a bit off, but not a problem.
Yeah, I'm kind of I've joined in. It wouldn't let me join in the normal way, and it only let me join going using the browser, and the sound for some reason on the microphone is always crap on this.
Not a problem.
I'll maybe go away and come back again.
Oh, look, not a problem. We don't want to lose you forever, Andy. Right. Okay then. So we've done Drina, yeah? Have we?
Yes.
Right. And Roger.
What? Right.
Go on.
Where they had slaves from a lot of areas and countries. Was there anywhere where they had sort of what can you say? Picked slaves who had certain better qualities, intelligence maybe, from say Gaul and Germany, somewhere else, rating them for certain skills, let's say.
Obviously the best example is the best example that we can come across is actually the example of Greek scholars being used in regards to educate the Roman aristocracy, right? And if you want to, so obviously that the Greeks at a point were enslaved by the Roman Empire, but then again they become freed citizens, right? You could equally talk about cavalry, right? The ala of the auxiliaries of the Roman world. Lots of cavalry people outside the Roman Empire who became enslaved were basically said, right, we want you as cavalry working for us, right? So there's lots of examples of people that was specifically taken on board by the Roman world to work for them, right? And that goes without saying.
They're talking about the skills and who could learn to write and all the rest of it, but the Romans had to be very careful that the slaves didn't get too much education, and the whole case they reacted as Spartacus did.
Oh yes,
it's tough enough anyway without giving them too much power.
Yeah,
because in medieval times it tended to be aristocracy might have read and all that, but the monks and certain classes of people, the church maybe, certain areas would read and write, translate, and certain other ones would be able to understand so much, perhaps in the army, if they were full legionnaires, compared to the auxiliaries, say.
Yeah.
And this one you found that they were supposed to be slaves, but writing, which could have been more unusual. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and that yeah, actually, yeah. The point is, you picked up on that you've got slaves who are able to write.
Mm-hmm.
So hang on a minute. What that goes against the grain? Surely, uneducated, thick, dumb, stupid slaves. Why would they be? But they're not dumb, stupid, and thick. They are people who are actually literate, right?
Unless it's good because of sort of treasured slaves who have been with families a long time and trusted, so they knew they could educate them and they wouldn't react in any way for freedom.
Yeah.
Something like that, maybe.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
a mixed bag, but there's a certain amount of things that they're always aware of the possibility of slaves getting together and reacting against the system. As Spartacus was an example of something like that actually happened. Just a thought, I don't know.
No, but when you think about it, I think that talking about people being illiterate and literate, I think is oversold. I think people were more literate than meets the eye. They really were, because again, if you've got all this carving, right? If you've got all this carving, why have you got all this carving if nobody's going to read it? So there's got to be a reason why you've got this carving, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, if you've got these huge monuments with all this writing on, right, and nobody can read it, well, what's the point? So obviously, people must have been able to read it for you to show this off in the first place,
Yeah. Yes, could be.
So
yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, and Andy, can you hear us now? Anyway, thanks for that, Roger.
We're still
no, it's still bad. It's still bad, Andy.
What about now?
Oh, yes, we can.
Right. Okay. Jolly good. Two things. One was the barrels. I've suddenly made me think, when did they start using barrels? And the other one was the Latin inscriptions that are often carved on statues today, and most people don't read those.
You've thrown us a little bit of that Andy. That was really nasty.
Sorry.
That was unbelievably nasty, right? Oh, by the way, I've got to tell you the plan about Claire in a moment. My and Drina's plan. We're going to tell you this, right? Because you came in late, right?
Right.
You can't tell Claire what we're going to tell you in a minute, right? So anyway, yeah, you are right. So in other words, let's just tackle the first point. So the proper legal legislative language of Britain is still Latin. This is why we still inscribe on buildings Latin text, right? Now, this is interesting because when you think about ancient hieroglyphics, right, and then you've got the cursive text, the only people who can actually read hieroglyphics in the Egyptian world were the monks and the aristocracy, right? But there was obviously the lower cursive text that anyone could read. Well, that was for the lower people. So in Britain today, we've got Latin that most of us can't read, right? And we've got English that, other than Roger, most of us can understand, right?
Yes.
So that's that point. But I think the point we're trying to make, the point you're trying to make, Andy, is obviously, why do they still inscribe on buildings is Latin, right? Is it the same as what they did back then? But people spoke Latin then, Andy. The difference then, they don't speak it today. That's the thing. And what was your other point?
Barrels. When did they come in?
Right. That was we already mentioned that was like a quiz thing that we did ages ago, right? So this is quite a crude analogy. So the idea of keeping stuff in barrels was argued by some historian to be a custom that we'd had in Britain, right? However, Andy, can you remember Trajan's column, and you remember those barge boats with barrels?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, really much adopted in the Roman world, so it can't just be a British tradition, right?
No, well, alcohol has to be in barrels, doesn't it? So
yeah,
but it gets the flavour from the barrel. So
particularly Roger's whiskey.
Yeah.
So when you think about barrels and buckets, actually, if we look at barrels, the Iron Age bucket, right? Can you remember they had lots of Iron Age buckets? Yeah. Well, that's basically a barrel, isn't it? So so when you think about it as a tradition, we can probably move that way back into the tradition of prehistoric Britain, right? But then the question is, right, how widespread were barrels in the Roman world? And you're thinking, well, the Romans stole and took from everybody. So therefore you're thinking that actually there were lots of barrels in the Roman world anyway, right? So if we look at it that way, hopefully that's that. Go on.
I was just curious that their chosen vessel for transport was the amphora.
Yes.
Which was, well, not as fragile as you might think because of the shape and thickness of it, but it was very breakable as opposed to a barrel that wasn't. So,
Yeah.
But there is one thing, Andy, right? Amphora survives in the archaeological record. So if you want to, let's just sort of gently look at this, right? So you're gonna probably have 100 amphoras surviving to the similar number of less than one barrel, right? So, and if you've got in a field in Lancaster, right? If somebody buried in the Roman period 100 amphoras, right, and 100 wooden barrels, the only thing that we're going to get is the binding for these barrels, right? And even then, we might misinterpret them. So,
yeah, that's true.
Andy, if we've answered everything there, it was a bit. We had a bit of a plan, right?
Yeah.
Michelle said, right. You didn't tell me about doing a live show in Cumbria. So yeah, well, because it came up it said you on the way, Michelle, we can go to Pendle, right?
Yep.
And she, well, where are we going? I said, we're doing a live show. You didn't tell me about that. So I've got to keep her happy, haven't I? Right.
Yeah.
But what I did say, right, we need a sort of local mystery subject from Cumbria, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I need to be able to back that up with sort of some photographs and evidence, right? So what I said, right, Gina knocks Claire's door, right? Gina says, I've got something to show you, right? I jump in through Claire's window, right? Go in to see what's into a basement, take loads of photographs, and we can use them in a live show as the mysteries of Arnside in Claire's basement.
Yes, these strange things and phenomena of Claire's basement. Yeah.
Yeah, but what will happen? She'll probably have loads of. I'll probably never leave there alive.
No, you become part of one of them. Yes.
Yeah. So, Andy, to avoid doing that, we need the subject that is quite mysterious in Cumbria that I can actually get some facts for. I do a canvas, and I can be, because what's going to happen, Andy? It's going to be, oh my God, it's a Lysig pillar in Cumbria, Wales. Oh, it's a mold cape, but we don't do any of that, right? Yeah. Oh my God, it's something from Cumbria, wicked. We want to do that, so obviously that'd be good.
Yep. Okay.
So it's something that we need something to, so we can do some research on. So that's it. Right. Okay.
Highway 1 in Cumbria. How about that?
The A66.
Oh no, Highwayman.
The highwayman. That's hardly archaeology, is it?
No, there probably weren't any highwaymen.
Way back before time was known.
Yeah, there probably wasn't any highwaymen because nobody's got any money up here.
Oh, but what about all the wimpies that closed, right? The archaeological evidence of wimpies, because that's another thing that Anne used to go to when she was a child all the time. Wimpies.
I remember wimpies. Yeah, there was one in Kendal,
and they used to do decent vegetarian burgers with decent vegetables in them. And they were vegetarian burgers with vegetables in them.
They still are in South Africa, I believe. So,
wimpy.
Yeah,
let's go back.
Vegetarian. Anyway, right, I gotta go and save the goats. Well, Michelle. Michelle's
Snowdrop asleep.
Yeah, no, the lamb's asleep now.
Yeah.
Right. So whilst I go and do the goats, Michelle's got to whatever, and then so we'll be back at about.
I'm going to say good night now, if that's all right. I'm tired, so I'll see you next week.
And we've loved your presence this week.
Well, I enjoyed coming, but I'm falling asleep. I really must get to bed.
And you've been honest there, and we'll see you next week.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, Anne.
Bye.
Okay.
Night, Anne. No, Anne.
Good night.
No, Anne. No, Anne. Joe, I was thinking that maybe Anne was getting a bit tired, and so I'll see you next week, Anne.
Yes. Good night.
No. Right, we're going to take a break now, so we'll be back about 6 or 7 minutes past 9. So we'll Roger, keep them entertained.
Any day? Ah, it's not raining, isn't it? So, how are things, Anne?
Sorry, trying to switch my microphone back on again.
Oh,
All right, been quite busy the last few days. I had a call out every day, so
I was going to say, how did the rescuing go? But it's
just kind of bit.
what's going on? Is this sort of lost in the land or what sea or something?
Yeah, well, there were two on Windermere that we went up to. Well, we didn't get to. We got stood down before we got there. But
what's happening to people? They get lost or what?
well, one was a drunken lady in the water. Another one was a boat that had run aground with 5 people in. So
right,
that's
so they're panicking a bit. Yeah,
yeah. And then the other one was somebody out walking on the sands. That the person in Grange, which is the town opposite us on the other side of the estuary, thought we're going to get into trouble and get caught up by the tide, but it was pointed out that the tide was 3 hours away, so it was very unlikely. So
yeah, people not very wise.
Yeah,
I got a bit near it once, Swansea way,
yeah,
but I thought I was okay on this headland.
yeah,
And I thought, it goes back, and suddenly I realised the tide was crept in.
yeah.
So I sort of scurried up on the higher part of the beach. It was okay, but you could soon just get wrapped up in something, checking wildlife, something, and then you got climb a cliff.
This lady, this person that called it in thought that this person was going to get cut off, and you're thinking about how can they get cut off? The tide's not due for another 3 hours, so
3 hours.
They're out on a sandbank, just out walking the dogs. And of course, they came and knew exactly what they were doing and were well out of the way long before the tide. So
that's right. If you know enough about, well, you should. On the sea coast, we knew that had all the tide tables, metal detecting and stuff.
Yeah,
that's another thing, especially in a stormy day. You get wrapped up in it, and you sort of put your head down under the hood.
Yeah, easily done.
Rough, but once you're wrapped up, you're okay. But it isolates you from the rest. You get sort of in your little world.
That's one of the hardest jobs when you're on a rescue is to make sure that if you're in charge, you're watching out for the tide. Never mind whether there's blood squirting out anywhere. Leave it up to the others to sort that out. You make sure that they're not going to get cut off by the tide because they're concentrating on what they're doing.
Right, but if there's blood come out, wrap it up quickly and
absolutely, yeah.
That's a quick enough. Start being doctors.
Stop it, yes.
Yeah. But yes, and we had tide tables, small tide tables.
Yeah.
And carefully
there are so many different ones available now, and they can be 40 minutes difference. I don't know how they managed to get so far apart when they basically all come from the same source.
No, it's crazy.
Even the one the Coast Guard published,
where the sea was, and you think, well, just keep an eye.
Yeah.
And on a sort of shallow beach, you can shoot up a lot.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Steep one, occasionally different.
Because we have mud flats and tidal estuary. There are lots of little channels and slight dips in the sand, and of course they fill up before the sandbank that you're on does. So you can look round, watch the tide coming in front of you, and thinking, right, we should head back now, and suddenly it's come round behind you and cut you off completely.
Definitely. Absolutely deadly.
Yeah.
And just got to be very wary, be more overcautious, and oh well, I know the sea can't be that bad. No one's drowned lately.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Yeah. Actually, it's true. We haven't had I can't remember the last drowning in the sea up here, but we've had several in the lakes. There have been 2 in the last 12 months. So.
As Carl used to work on this place called Cosmeston Lake, an old quarry, filled in as a sort of nice feature and it looks lovely. And on a hot day, let's go in. But of course, they get caught by the sudden shock of cold water on the body and certain perhaps debris left from
definitely.
Trying to be too clever unless you're really sure of something.
Yeah, I once jumped into a river. There was some building remains on the banking nearby, and we've been filming down on this river for several days, and it was clear. I could see it was quiet. There wasn't the water wasn't running very much at all. I could see it was a nice deep pool. So, and they wanted someone to just jump off this kind of rock into the water. It wasn't particularly high, sort of 5 or 6 feet or whatever. So I jumped. I thought, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, no problem. So I jumped in. As I'm going in, I've got my eyes open and I can see these bolts sticking out the wall of the rock face under the water that I hadn't seen from the surface, and they weren't very far away from me. They were sticking out about a foot. And I thought, oh my goodness, if I hadn't jumped that far, because I made a big jump, if I had jumped a bit less, I'd have hit them and I'd have been in real trouble. I thought, buddy,
rip your legs off.
You just don't know, do you? So
no, you don't. It's stuff. That's the trouble. They leave quarries.
Yeah.
I know it's their business and say, well, that's it. Take your chances. But knowing what people do,
yeah,
the pity they don't make them sort of safe.
Yeah, they really should be making them safe.
But it's the cold that gets them. It's cramp. It seizes the body up.
Yeah.
And what I'm gathering, I watch things on, watch this and that. And it's surprising. It's cold when you've been in a hot day, and of course it paralyzes only the shock value.
Yeah, that's all I can think of is the last one we had a few weeks ago up in one of the little tarns near Windermere. And the lad, 16-year-old lad, 16, 17, I can't remember what he was now, but we can think of is, I mean, you don't know. He might have had an heart attack. He might have had anything, but all we can think, it was a nice warm day and it was just cold water because he got into difficulty and drowned. We've no idea why. So, which is a tragedy.
On this program, that you know more, but the shock.
Yeah.
Because they reckon with drowning, it comes to a heart attack.
Right.
That's right.
Oh, I don't know that. I don't know. Yeah.
I won't take the chance.
No, definitely not.
No. I'm not that brave. I just say keep out of it.
Right. I've got to leave you at the moment. I've got to let the cat in. I'm sorry.
Oh. Yeah, carry on. Okay, mate. See you. Poor pussycat. Brian.
I think that we'll be all ready now.
You put the goats in, yeah?
I'll put the goats in. Roger's there. He's a man. How you doing, Rog?
Yeah, checking my phone.
It's all for the good of the country in the Third Reich, I think.
Oh, yeah, it's a Sid Reich. Hello.
Yeah, if you could get that lamb in and the mum, that'd be good. Oh, that baby lamb's come back in.
Clear it up.
Oh, okay.
The two big new lambs will probably they might have been sold up. The two twins I want.
Mm-hmm.
They're too small and weak. Hiya, folks.
Oh.
Drina's back. Drina's back from her bedroom.
Mm.
Adrina, whatever you do, don't argue over the bags of coins that I've sent to Margaret.
Okay.
You know. So
As if I
we do
would.
have yeah, that's true. That's true. We got a couple of people online. 3 barrels of Roman wine. I don't know where they're getting that from. I think Roman wine was watered down. Yeah, so true.
You know, when you were talking about the barrel in the well,
Yeah.
is that because it's a short well, or do they sort of build it up with a pile of barrels?
They would have built it with a pile of barrels.
Okay.
They you know, may not too many, but obviously it would have been a pile of barrels. A pile of barrels. You could. Would it be? We could have a day out to the Smithfield Museum of London experience. That'd be good.
Oh, Richard.
Yes.
That'll be. Roger's paying. Roger's going to pay for the minibus and everything. He's
yeah.
He's into that. You know, Roger's got like a nice side to him. So
somewhere, but
somewhere over the rainbow. Right. Okay. Then let's just crack on.
Over the rainbow.
Way up high, there's a land that we dream of once. Well, that's enough, Rog. That's enough.
Serenading Adrina.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I thought you were trying to do that, Rog. I thought he was trying to do that.
Smoothie and all that before you say anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Roger, right. I can say. Are we on the chart that we left off on?
Yeah.
We've got the archaeology community thing at the moment.
Oh God, we got the other one. All right, then let's try. Oh, I'm with it. Oh, by the way, Andy, do you like the logo?
Logo.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice that.
It is. The trowel is smaller on the actual real one, but it was like the name archaeology company sort of mutated. It's like the community thing that we were discussing. That sounded really good. So right. Anyway, let's crack on. Where are we? We are right. So let's try and get to this a minute. I just want to ease on a little bit of help and sort of get some dates in there. Right, so that's upside down. Right, so 6 phase 4. Just try and get some. Oh, do you know what I'm going to do? Right, to read the other one, I'm going to take a photograph of this and I can read it properly. Right, so hang on a minute. There's a relevance. Why don't things work when you want them to? Right, there we go. Right, okay. My love for Roger doesn't seem to work. Right, okay. So now we can go back to the other chart. Yeah, it's saved. Good. There we go. There the barrel. Yeah, as I was trying to say earlier on, there's another barrel on top, Drina.
Okay.
So basically these were barrels stacked on top of barrels.
Yeah.
Right. You
Yeah.
see, you know, so when you think about it, if it's when you're talking about some of these levels being 7 meters deep, right? I wouldn't say you'd have a long thing 7 meters into the ground, but you know, several meters anyway, not 7. But anyway, let's crack on to where we were. So I've got the one to directly translate to this. So when you go down to this one here, which is 6 phase 1, that dates all the way up to AD 250. So if you go across here, you get 1 tablet, right? So interesting. Now this is really, really interesting. So most, and I think I've been wanting to say this for a long time, most of the information that we get from Roman era Britain seems to be from earlier on, right? Lots of the carvings from York, all that stuff seems to be from early on. Most of our historical evidence in Roman era Britain seems to be early on, right? So let's just talk about the gravity of this, and I've not really discussed this before, but I've understood it to be a fact. So when you're looking at Roman era Britain, right? We know of all the governors from Aulus Plautius, you know, all the way through to basically about the AD 150s, right? But then the chronology of the governors of Britain start to get a bit shady. When we think about this, when we're looking at tablets, for example, the bulk of these tablets seems to be from here, which is from this phase 3, phase 1, which is basically from the early ages. These are from about AD 70, right? So you're looking at this and you're thinking, why is this, right? And it seems to be that there's a lot more going on in Roman era Britain in the sort of AD 50s, AD 60s, into about AD 150, right? But surely things are not as intense, and with the historical stuff, including tablets. When we look at Vindolanda, most of the stuff at Vindolanda is sort of AD 120s, AD 130s, whatever, you know. So the excruciating thing is you're looking at this being there's less and less information in more recent times. So by the time you get to AD 400, we don't get much in the way of carvings. We don't get much in the way of tablets. We don't get much in the way of any of this stuff, right? Even though you might think that obviously more of the more recent stuff would survive, that's not the point. Can you see what I'm getting at there? And so presenting, this is another problem that I've got, and I'm going to spit it out. Presenting Roman era Britain, it could turn out that most of the stuff that we learn about Roman era Britain is from AD 43 to roughly about AD 150, AD 160, AD 180. And then the information seems to get less and less, right? Because we don't have those military forts. We don't have the building of roads. We into the AD 200s, 250s, 260s, that type of stuff. We have the Saxon shore forts on the eastern coast of Britain. But buildings, for example, in Londinium are starting to be demolished in the AD 330s. So I'm not going to stress that anymore, but I'm going to say we've got a problem, right? And I've not been able to understand why this is, because in likelihood, we should have more information about the later Roman era in Britain than we do of say, AD 100. But unfortunately, it's the other way around. So when we get to the likes of me and Judith having a little soiree of looking at King Arthur, right? There's very little information because there's less and less being written down. Is that something to do with literacy? The thing is, you would think that people's literate understanding would be greater in more recent times as Christianity starts to bubble and come into sort of domination in Roman era Britain into by the AD 350s. So all of these things are food for thought. So here we go. These are more tablets, and it basically says complete and almost complete examples of these stylus tablets, and one completely plain. Like, so we're thinking, well, hang on a minute. There's not really a lot going on there, and sort of this is the one side of it, and that's the name, but there's nothing going on with that tablet, right? There's not much information, right? Why is that? Maybe they just used it once and I didn't use it at all, right? So that one there, that's the that's the one side, right? That's the non-wax side. But if we look at this, for example, there's a lot going on. There's lots of sort of cursive stuff on there, and have you? And Andy mentioned something really, really interesting, and it's just hit me in the face now, and I can explain. Yes, now it's just hit me in the face like a slap on the face, right? So say for example, I've just turned to this book, which is Britannia Romana, which is inscriptions, right? The first page I come up to is a page on the Antonine Wall, and the inscriptions are in capitals, right? On the opposite page, there's another inscription which is all in capitals. It's the higher case Latin, right? There's another one here on page 308 from Bordeaux, for example. That's all in capitals, and you're thinking, well, there's another one to do with Minerva. This is interesting. When page 356, it says a dedication to Jupiter's wife and consort Juno, right? This is all in capitals, right? Are you getting the theme that lots of stuff that is imperial edicts is in capitals, and lots of stuff like this isn't? So that goes back to that fights against
in the language, Carl.
Say that. Go, Roger. Just interject
think,
there a minute. Go on.
I think there was something about the Latin, like the Egyptians. You know, you had the formal Latin, if you like, and the common usage, the Vulgare.
Yeah.
Vulgare something. No, I don't know what
the Vulgaris text. Yeah, exactly.
So what they're written in, I don't know. If when the capital's in the full Latin, formal, like legal language, and the other's just in chit chat. I don't know.
When the strange thing, I'm not going to show you now, right? The strange thing is that when I was talking about later writings and stuff in Roman era Britain, and there's not a lot of them, the stuff that does come through, for example, in Cymru Wales. Now, this is something that again blows your mind. That when you think about, there's thousands of inscriptions across Britain, right? Thousands of them that have been found all over the shop. Even I'm sort of responsible for the finding of one as well, and that was in Old Carlisle, but that was in capitals, right? And the point is, what I'm trying to get at is that you got all these loads of Roman inscriptions in the early stages, and then some coming up more into the 200s. But when then something weird happens, right? Coming into the 300s, about 350, 360, 400, you get Ogham, right? And you get some sort of bastardized Latin and sort of local forms of writing inscribed on stones. But those stones primarily are in West Wales. They're not in England, right? So where you get lots of these carved stone in England in the AD 50s, 60s, 100s, 200s, right? Then you get another wave of carved stones in Cymru Wales that use Ogham and actually some basic forms of literacy, which is something that we were talking about with Anne earlier on. Anyway, so let's look a little bit more. So it's sort of saying the only complete inscribed, which one recessed face divided by a central groove. So it's really interesting. You've got a central groove on these. So we showed a central groove on another one earlier on, and the central groove is really interesting. Is it defining that you've got one text on one side and one text on another? And look at this. These are the different forms, right? The different forms, and what's in the central groove? It's saying seals.
Laptop.
So, yeah, it's like a laptop. Yeah, it is a laptop. So if we look at this, if we look at this, and this is saying, obviously, we've got it's talking about an inner text, an inner page, right? And we've got a little area which is defined by this here in the middle, where you'd have a little sort of channel that you'd have all the seals in, right? And it's sort of saying reconstructions of a triptych rather than a diptych. And it's basically saying that obviously these are hinged together, right? It does look like a laptop, and it's basically saying that, you know, you've got different ways that these could actually be used, right? And maybe with the seals as well. The problem is if you've got a seal and this is your sort of triptych, this tablet, right? And that the document is shown as an example, right? So in other words, I think in a way these are being used to draft letters rather than the actual final document. So people are drafting things, and some like an official scribbles something, gives it to a secretary, right? And that person writes it on a parchment, and that becomes the official document. So these are a lot more complicated than you could have thought before this presentation today. And you've got you've got 1, 2, 3 tablets, right? And it could be likely that the second tablet could be double-sided. You've got double-sided wax, and these are all bound together. So when Roger said a laptop, yeah, you've got 4 different sets of writing. It's like a mini notepad, and this is the way you can actually look at these. Now, back to the archaeology. When you're looking at the Bloomsburg excavations, right? This is where the Bloomsburg building is in this area, and the River Walbrook runs directly through it on the eastern side. Now, what we do know about the River Walbrook, it's been so much diverted and culverted that in a way very little water or anything runs through it today. But this is an important area. So what's happening is that even though the Walbrook still existed in the Roman period, it's becoming more channelized, right? More like a canal. And we use the word canal a lot more in Roman era Britain. And what this is basically showing, right, is that when we looked at how Roman Londinium was actually being reclaimed from the River Thames, there is the bank of the River Thames now, right? And what this is saying, right, is that the depth of alluvium, the depth of deposits goes down 9 meters in these areas, right? So when you get to the Bloomsburg excavation, you can understand that the layers are actually going to be quite deep again, right? And then, so these are the negative values, where these are the negative values of depth, right? Where you've got 9 meters, 10 meters, or whatever of alluvium built up, right? And then slowly but surely, where you get the Walbrook, you get other values where the Walbrook is actually getting shallower and shallower as it goes north. But this is the area of the Bloomsburg excavations. So moving on again. Now, this is these 2 maps are really interesting again, right? So what you've got is that as you look at this, you can clearly see that this is probably, we've probably not shown this to this value. You can follow my cursor. You've obviously got all the bridges, and this is the River Thames today, and all of this area here, including the Fleet, okay, the Walbrook, all of this here has actually been reclaimed. All on the south bank, all of this has been reclaimed. We can't stress that anymore. And there is, obviously, this is where the Walbrook excavations are. So if we move on to the next plan, this makes it even more interesting again. So what we've got, if we think of, you know, is talking of this here, right? And obviously this eventually becomes the city, right? And I've never seen this before, and I'll put my hands up in the air. I had no idea that there was a temporary fort, which was southeast of the actual Roman fort where my hand is showing as a cursor. I didn't know this, but all these things that say baths, these baths are actually visible for viewing today anyway. There's some more baths, but thinking about this as well, so we read the trajectory here. Map showing the Bloomsburg London site in red, and we're thinking that all of these roads and so on are actually in existence before they actually built the wall, right? So this takes us up to AD 60, right? And then when you think about it, right, you've got this modern river superimposed, right, and it looks nothing like what's at London today, right? So the Warburg site is quite some distance away from the modern bank of the River Thames. And as we go on, again, this tells you a little bit about layers, and what they're showing is a few really interesting things. So what you can see here is it's going for the early phases, and you can actually see why some of these layers are 7 meters deep, right? And if you look at the section and it's talking about in the early phases, if you follow that, it's talking about original London clay. You talk about the early period from sort of AD 43. If you follow the cursor here, going along here to the Boudicca period, and then over time, all of these layers have been built up, right? So this layer here, where the cursor is talking about, this takes us up to roughly about AD 90, right? And look at the complex archaeology here. This is all to do with reclamation. This is all to do with buildings. And these here are all the timber stakes, right? And this indicates all the building stages. So quick translation of this. When you're looking at this section, there's 2 points. The first point is that as a building was no longer used, it was demolished, and then another layer was placed on top of that, and another layer was placed on top of that, until you get to roughly, right? Till you get to roughly. Now, this is really interesting, right? This is something that I gravitated to earlier on, right? When you get to where my hand is here, it says period 5, ground level, up to AD 220. It's almost as if this area, where my cursor's going across, is almost abandoned, right? The Romans abandoned this area by the looks of it, more or less. So by the time you get to AD 340 and AD 440, it almost explains why you don't get any more tablets, because the archaeology itself in the Roman era, they seem to have abandoned that locality, which does tell us a lot that maybe Roman London was actually shrinking. Maybe it was getting smaller and smaller. And we know that again by the demolition of structures in Roman Londinium by roughly the AD 330s. So again, another one of these plans. Again, we will be coming back to the Bloomsburg excavation site again. Now, this is rather interesting. So what we saw earlier on was that if you follow the cursor, the River Walbrook is basically coming along here. So by the time you've got lots of the archaeology being uncovered, right, the River Walbrook is starting to fall out of use, right? But that aside, this is rather interesting because it basically, obviously, the deeper stuff of the archaeology associated with the River Walbrook, but you can clearly see that lots of these tablets almost end up in the area of the River Walbrook, and you could probably say that they just ended up in the mud. They're just discarded. And when you think about it, there's a parallel when you think about Vindolanda, that lots of these tablets and stuff are found in ditches and they're just discarded there and thrown away. That's maybe what people did with writing. They just discarded it in the water. And that's actually a really interesting tradition to do with the Roman world. That, for example, you had curse tablets. A curse would be written on a piece of lead, and it'd be discarded into a river. And I'm not saying this is the same thing, but there is a massive concentration of these tablets, and there's probably a lot more across the site if they excavated it more when the Bloomsburg building is taken down in about 60 or 70 years, because I'm sure it'll be replaced. And again, over 400 of these tablets. So what we're going to do now is that I do believe we do have some more images, right? But what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to have to come back on, I'm going to have to come back off, and I'm going to have to reboot. Right, so if you don't mind me doing that, and if somebody wants to say something at this minute, they are welcome to. Right, are you looking at me now?
Yes.
Right. If somebody wants to say something, then I'll get my other images ready.
Did they not know how to make paper?
You're asking a very dodgy question. And the reason why you're asking a very dodgy question is because we've got papyrus, and we've got vellum, and when you're talking about did they not know how to make paper, nothing like that has actually survived. Obviously the Chinese had paper, but the fact of the matter is we don't have that evidence surviving. And the other thing as well is they may have written on other things that are really, really organic and would really, really decay rapidly.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to work out what things are missing, because sometimes in archaeology we think certain things didn't happen, and then we get the evidence that they did. And the example of that is with the Neanderthals. You know, there's so much we know about the Neanderthals now that we didn't know before. In fact, everything from their writing to when they're writing, cave art, sorry. I'm not saying that they wrote things down, maybe they did, to their sort of ability to communicate, their musical instruments, to their hunting, all these things about the Neanderthals we discovered, things that we didn't know in 1850 when the first Neanderthals were found in Neander Valley in Germany, right? So obviously over all that time, we've completely changed our understanding what Neanderthal is after 175 years. So when we're thinking about how I don't think we understand oral tradition enough, right? And what I mean by that is that tonight this is being recorded and it's going out on the internet and you're listening to it, right? But it's likely in about 30-40 years this won't exist, right? And there's no written record of it, right? There'll probably be a written record that a guy used to give talks on a Tuesday and a Wednesday evening, and it was me, and there, some of your names would survive and whatever, and we put this in a magazine. But the actual talk itself, that there will be no record. There was nothing written down, right? So in other words, this presentation tonight is an oral tradition, right? So how do we know that there weren't people who weren't orally recording things, right? I don't know if you've seen the film The 39 Steps or read the book.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. Now, Mr. Memory.
Oh, yes.
This is what it's all about.
Yeah.
Mr. Memory told the chief protagonist in the film what was going to happen, right? And Mr. Memory was killed, right? So I think we don't understand so much about history in the way things were recorded, right? We've been talking about inscriptions. We've been talking about tablets. But what we haven't been talking about is oral tradition, right? And there's so much that, and then you go back to paper, right? And it's very interesting that you bring up that question, that what about paper? Did they have paper? Did they not have paper? But there's so many other things that they can write on, right? For example, you can write on silk. But how much silk has been found in Britain in the Roman era? About 2 or 3 items of silk, right? Silk, you can easily write on silk. Maps. maps were silk maps, right? I can remember. I think I can vaguely remember. I think I can remember a silk map when I was a child, right? But you don't find silk maps anymore, and it's just like there's so many there's so many things that you can write on which haven't survived.
Mm.
And you know, when we were children, I'm sure we used to use all sorts of things, from writing on leaves and so on, and none of this stuff would have survived.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, I just sort of felt that maybe paper was more permanent, and the wax tablets would be reused over and over. So
yeah, and obviously, even if the wax tablets are used to just draft things, right?
yeah,
They're not permanent. You're right. So paper is more permanent, and but you've got to think outside the box. What other things can you write on, right?
Yeah.
And what other things can you make permanent? And oral tradition is one of those things. Do you know what? When I was a child, I used to go to Barry Library, and I had a tape recorder and like a thing given to me for a birthday, right? And I remember I got a tape deck, right? So I used to go down the library, and I don't know why. I really don't know why. I've no idea why I would have been the only member of the family who would go down to the library to get listening tapes, right? But some of the stories that I listened to in regards to Magnus Magnusson's, he had I can remember some of those stories that I listened to when I was about 9 years old, right? But if you can ask me what I remember from some books that we read in school, I can't remember them at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's a really interesting one. But what we're going to do, we're going to crack on with the last images, right? And then I got to fundle some sheep. Roger didn't comment on that. Anyway, are you looking at these two beasts?
Yes.
Right. Yes. Let's go on. Let's go on to these. So, right. So there's nobody else online, unfortunately. Hang on a minute. Which is on my YouTube, but there were a few. So I'm just gonna put hi on there. Hi. Right. So let's have a look at this. This is really interesting. They found some really nice sculptures in regards to the Turkey and so on recently, but these are some of them. I'm just getting the information up, and listen to these: intact Roman sculptures unearthed in Israel, and this is reported June the 16th. And you're thinking, Israel's a war zone, and these archaeologists are still working, right? This is actually found in a place known as Binyamina, and these are actually, look how perfect they look, in Israel, and these date back to roughly AD 300, so 1,700 years ago. These are actually marble busts, have been discovered, interestingly enough, in a wine collection pit at a wine press dated to the Roman period in northern Israel. One of the busts is inscribed in Greek with the name Lycurgus, perhaps referring to the legendary founder of Sparta, or a statesman and an orator who lived in Athens, 600 years before these were actually created. They're saying that it's saying that the sculptures may have been buried in the pit to hide them during an invasion. In the Roman period, statues of this kind were displayed both in public buildings and in the homes of members of the elite, the knights, if you can remember, who sought to associate themselves with the cultural and intellectual world of antiquity. The researchers think the statues may have been displayed in a bathhouse that was uncovered nearby or from the city of Caesarea. These are not statues that would have stood in a local farmhouse. These are very special in a wealthy place. The second figure, which has a wild beard, that's how I'm going to look by September, has not yet been identified, but may depict a thinker or philosopher or somebody lost in history. That all we've got now is this these carvings, which is absolutely brilliant. These beautiful busts. It doesn't say about scale, but I can imagine that they're life size. Right, so a little bit more. We've got more now. This is rather interesting. New discoveries at Vindolanda offer fresh glimpse into Roman Britain. So these date back to April, so we're talking about May as well. Excavations of Vindolanda have brought to light a growing collection of finds, each adding another layer to the story of this frontier Roman fort. As teams work through successive layers, they uncovered a mix of everyday objects and finely made items, each offering a direct link to different periods of activity across its long occupation. And I'm just trying to work out. Oh, it's not saying specifically what this is a minute, so we'll crack on up. So one discovery drew immediate attention. It goes, Marina, on her first volunteer visit, uncovered a large iron key, which I do believe is the next one. Right, there it is, a large iron key. While working through the remains of a later building, the structure dates to a period, wait for it, guys, after AD 410. When apparently there were no Roman military left in Britain. Interesting that. The key is heavily corroded, but its form is still easy to pick out. So basically, it's like a pit key. You put it in there, you juggle it around, and the whole thing opens. It is the kind of object that speaks quietly but clearly. Someone once used it to lock a door, secure a chest, chastity belt, or protect something of value. Must be a big chastity belt. Finds like this suggest that activity at Vindolanda did not simply stop with the end of Roman rule. Do you know what? I mentioned chastity belts because actually chastity belts never really existed, folks.
No.
I'm sorry, Rog. They never did. From a separate area, that was one of Roger's things. He used to go, yeah, he used to always date women who wore chastity belts. From a separate area, a copper alloy, ligula, which is basically a small, neatly shaped, narrow spoon. In Roman use, it has several roles, including medical ones. One of those uses involved cleaning the ear, a detail that tends to surprise modern audiences. Oh, next, obviously, go to. I think this is a face jug, actually. Oh, yeah, there we go. Pottery fragments added another layer to the day's work. Assured from the Nene Valley, it's a beaker, was identified. Made in Cambridgeshire, this type of pottery is known for its thin fabric and decorative finish. The piece shows that it's basically like a figure, you know. They usually get lots of scenes on these things. A face pot. So we're talking about that dates to about the 200s. So the piece shows part of a human face formed in clay. These vessels are well known, but still not fully explained. Some may have had a decorative role, others something more symbolic. Other fragments, hang on a minute. Right, it goes. Other fragments, sometimes more. Right, other fragments could help clarify that. They also found an iron spearhead, sometimes described as a lance head, was also recovered. It is a reminder of the military side of the fort. And then it goes on to say, I think it goes on to say a little bit further. We got any more images? Don't think so. That's something else. Hang on a minute. It just keeps on updating. I keep losing the text. Right. Vindolanda, as we know, it was an auxiliary fort along Hadrian's Wall. It's saying that most of the evidence that they get from Hadrian's Wall gets to AD 370, but now we've extended that from about to the AD 415, AD 420, and the fort lies, as we know, in Northumberland, well known for the Vindolanda tablets, thin wooden writing tablets that we've already mentioned. But the wooden tablets at Vindolanda actually have ink text on them, right? So tablets, wooden tablets used to write on, right? That's the difference. They wrote on the tablets. Obviously, they've got the wax tablets that I've been mentioning. They've also got tablets that they wrote on, right? Roger, you can't marry that woman there because she's got a wedding ring on, Rog. Right. Yeah. Sorry, Rog. Women are not always available for you, right?
No.
And this last one here, I think we've got another thing to show you. Hang on, I'll just double check. No, this is the last one now, last one tonight, and then we'll call it a day. May have shown you this before, but I want to put this back into context. Goddess Victory uncovered at Vindolanda, right? This is dating to May the 17th, so it may not have shown you. I'm not exactly sure. But so symbolic find signifying the end of an ancient war uncovered at Roman Vindolanda. Sandstone relief carving is not massive, believed to be a representation of the Roman goddess of victory, has been discovered, reused in a pile of rubble above an infantry barracks at Vindolanda. Victory, known in Latin as Victoria, was the personification of victory in Roman religion and mythology. She was the counterpart of the Greek goddess Nike. Victoria was highly revered by the ancient Romans. During the times of war, she was often credited with battlefield success. The stone is thought to be one side of a much larger relief, which would have framed an inscription in its center. Maybe they might find that one day. This might be associated with AD 213, associated with the end of the Severan Wars, and Caracalla, who was the son, as we know, of Septimus Severus. So it could be to do with that. And the barracks were adorned with a large ornamental arch and gate, precisely the location where an inscription may have been present, and this might be to do with that. The relief of victory is poignant, representing the end of the war and the establishment of the fort again at the site. And I just wanted to mention that that this is the 21st excavation period at Vindolanda. This object itself, as I said, it's not huge, but it's about it's just under just probably under 2 foot in length. So well, you could say it's big, but it's not huge. And it's basically saying that I just wanted to mention this, a homage to the archaeologists at the site. Dr. Andrew Burley, the director of the excavations at Vindolanda, said finds like this are incredibly rare these days from Roman Britain, but the beautifully carved figure vividly reminds us that Roman forts were not simply utilitarian. They had grandeur, and cause the symbolism was a vital part of the culture. He said, I am also delighted for Jim and Dillis for their discovery. It is just a reward for their 21 years of hard work and dedication to this site. So they've been volunteering there for 21 years, these two, Dillis and Jim. Roman reliefs like this would have been coloured. It is highly likely that the stone would have originally been brightly painted. We will be working with our specialists to see if any traces of the pigment remain. There might be. So for now, the relief is being stored unwashed, ready for that further analysis. So there might be some painting on this. So this artifact will go on display. Maybe it will go on display maybe next year. So the Vindolanda Trust thanks everybody for sort of getting onto the site. And actually, guys, I made a slight mistake. I thought this was found this year. It was actually discovered last year, but I'm not sure that we actually covered this. So, and they're saying next year, so it's going to be put on display this year. So sorry about that mistake, but obviously it's there. They might have some updates on the color, so it's a year later. So hopefully we might learn more. So yes, loving it. So what we're going to do, we're going to call that a day, I do believe. Okay. And we're gonna go to stop the share. We're going to find out if Roger's got anything to say before he goes to bed.
Yes. Well, that's fine. It's interesting. And Vinderland is all full of interest. And that ditch there, unfilling, seeing what was thrown into there. That one ditch.
Yes.
But, no, it was amazing what they created, same old thing. They achieved so much without electricity and all the stuff we've got. But it's amazing.
I got to be honest with you. I think somebody was saying the other day. Oh, I don't know what they were saying. They were saying, oh, why would anyone live in medieval castles, and why would anyone live in tall towers when it was freezing cold? And I'm thinking, well, all you're doing is looking at the past in modern eyes, right? There's a wonderful tower in Arnside. There's the Arnside Tower, and it's like and you're thinking, well, why would anyone live in there? It's like a tower house, and it's like and you're thinking, well, they did live in there, and these were special places for hundreds of years, and you can't always understand the past in modern eyes, because these people survived, and they had families, and their generations have gone down the line and are still with us today. So there's lots of things that we need to learn about the past, which we don't rightly understand today. And one of them is how they actually survived, and they did. And actually, can I just say one thing, right? I wrote in the magazine, which you should have in the next couple of weeks, and I said this building that I'm in now, right? I can remember for the first few weeks banging my head on the beams in here, right? And I started to wear a hat all the time. Now, I don't bang my head on any of the beams anymore, because my body gets used to the fact that when you get close to a beam, you've got to drop your body, right? And so what I'm getting at is that when you get used to certain things in the past, right, things become easier and you understand it. But if you look at it from modern perspective, yeah, it's difficult to do. Right, anything else from you, Roger?
Well, that's it. I'll be turning in now. So,
no, Roger. By the way, on behalf of Andy and the rest, your head looks a lot better.
It does.
Yes.
Said that before.
Good.
The cheek is nearly done, and this now is still going. But
That's better than it was last week. Much better.
Yeah, well, it's taken away
100%
something that I had for a time, which I thought I'd cleared originally here. That one there is now almost nothing, but it needed the extra treatment to clear it, to kill the blisters. So thanks.
Yeah, good to see you, mate. Take care.
Good to see you, Roger. Roger, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week, and I'm so pleased that your head's clearing up after all my jokes, Roger. Take care.
Bye.
Cheers, Rog. Cheers, Rog. Okay. Right. Drina, anything you'd like to say, love?
Well, when you were saying about living in cold places, my daughter would never put her heating on because they couldn't afford it. And I used to go to their house and it was absolutely freezing. And when they came to mine, they thought it was far too hot because it was just pleasantly warm for me. You know what I mean? So it's what you're used to.
Yeah, that's probably what I wanted to say, but it was just too crass for me to say it. It was just like, no, what I mean too crass is like people saying, well, you get used to the temperature. And it's just like, well, if you live in Nigeria, it's hot most of the time.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, well, you get used to the temperature. And if you live in Scotland, right? Well, if you live in Scotland and you live in Glasgow and you drink more whiskey and it warms your body up, right? I know that sounds a bit sort of chuck away statement, but people get used to different. When me and Michelle have been to Orkney and Shetland, I've been a few times, and Michelle's been a few times, and I think we've been up there 3 times together. I think me and Michelle, and I think the cold is not of interest because we understand the place from a cold place. We live in Wales and we go to there and we understand the temperature and stuff, right? You get used to these things and you get used to that lifestyle. I tell you what, I would not want to live in Spain all year round. I worked in Spain. It was absolutely horrific. I remember it was so hot. It was so hot when we worked in Spain, right? We used to go to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. By 12 o'clock, that was the day gone. There was the siesta. Only stupid Westerners would carry on doing the siesta in Spain, right? After the siesta. It'd be a siesta for 4 hours and nobody would go back to work, right? So we would go back to work. because it was so hot. You couldn't even sleep in the afternoon. So I don't even see what the sense of the siesta was for. Right. I wouldn't want to live in a place like that, but people do. Millions of people live in Spain. It's they love the place, you know. What about all those people that go to Mecca, right? One of the hottest places on earth, and 1 million people go to Mecca, right? You and I wouldn't survive 2 minutes, but 1 million people go.
No.
You get used to it. You get really, really used to it. And I don't know. My experience of living in Arnside was that there was no change in temperature or anything. Than living in West Wales, you know, it's bloody cold. But no, it wasn't. I had a pleasant experience with living in Arnside, but
yeah, but it's colder outside than it is inside.
Yes,
and that's how you survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's how you survive. Oh, mind you, in this building, it's usually colder inside than it is outside. That's
even with the sheep underneath.
Even with the sheep inside as well.
Oh no, that's no good.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all good. Right. Anything else from you, Drina?
No.
Right. Good. And I got to. Have you given that pack to your grand?
Not yet. It just missed the being here. I'll give it to her next time.
So basically, that one Victorian stamp, right? You saw that in there in a little pack.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. You know, the thing is, what you could do is get her into stamp collecting, because stamp collecting.
Yeah, I was just thinking that
it's starting to get popular. If you do get her into stamp collecting, right, you need to have a word with me, because it's something that I got a few things like that, and you could say, I know a man who can send us some more Queen Victorian stamps, and I might actually have a penny red there somewhere.
Wow. Get you.
Yeah, exactly. Acme. Okay. So, right, you are a penny red anyway, Drina. There you go. So, no, I'm not going to call you Penny Black, Andy. Right, anything you want to say?
No, thanks. I said it already. That's interesting stuff. I've always, I think about the tablets. You're thinking, they've turned up in London, they've turned up at Vindolanda. How many more places are we going to find some, you know?
Yeah.
And it's going to tell a different story.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. This is the fascinating thing. When we went to school, it was like everything was the same, right? Yeah. And historians and archaeologists want us still to think that, in a way, that you've got there's one timeline and that's how it was. Well, we know right. What's blowing my mind constantly is that I'm really struggling with why there gets less and less more information written about the Roman era as we get to the 400s, and I don't get that, and it's a struggle, because surely there would be more writing going this way than there would that way.
Yeah.
And because if it's obvious, right?
Yeah.
The older things are, the less of their survival, but it's not. It's the other way round, and I struggle with that, right? And it's just like
that could be. I'm only going on Vindolanda here because that's the only one I know. London's got clay layers too, but when they rebuild, they level it and seal it, and what they've leveled it with has often been very clayish soil, which has sealed it, sealed the air in it, which has preserved it.
Yeah.
And after 400. They didn't so much do that. There are sites they redeveloped, but they didn't seal and rebuild, as far as I know.
Can I just do something a minute, right? I don't know the answer to this, so I'm going to look at it now, right? I'm going to. I mentioned it a few times. York, a Roman wooden tablets, and if an answer to that, right? We will be doing it, right? Because I don't know the answer to that question.
No, there should be. You're right.
There technically should. Technically, that is some of the best organic stuff we've got in Britain. It's not coming up. So Roman tablets, wood, York. It's not coming up on my phone, so I'm going to do it on a laptop now. So here we go. It's searching. While Roman stone inscriptions have been found directly in York, no major caches of Roman wooden writing tablets have been excavated in York itself. This makes, mind my French, this makes no bloody sense at all. That makes no sense at all.
Did they use the clay tablets throughout the entire period?
No, but we are talking about like for like.
Yeah, I mean,
it is
York's
contemporary,
right through. But I mean, I'm just wondering whether that if they only used it in the early periods, that the later stuff's not there. I mean, I'm thinking Cirencester, for instance. There's not a lot of Cirencester exposed or been dug, so that that could easily be why there's nothing from there. So, but most of York's been dug, isn't it? So,
hey, do you know what? Do you know what? Right, we're going to see if you're right or wrong on that one. Right, we're gonna type in Cirencester. Because these places, they're okay. Cirencester, right? Here we go. Oh, here we go. A rare fragment of a wooden Roman wax tablet was excavated in Cirencester. The remarkable find represents a vital piece of. So they did actually find a tablet.
okay, so there's
buried in the
more
waterlogged soil.
Yeah.
Unlike here we go. Unlike the thin postcard-sized ink leaves famously found at Vindolanda, the Cirencester artifact is a fragment of a stylus tablet, right? Which is obviously like the ones we got in Londinium, right?
Yeah.
So there's only Andy, right? Let's not get too excited. There's only one.
Yeah, but there's not a lot been dug at Cirencester, has there? So if I remember right, there's large sections that are under the main town today, and until they redevelop those sites, they're not going to be looked at. And same with London. Yeah.
Yeah. So when if we want to compare the stuff in London, the stuff in London is very much different from Vindolanda, and obviously if we had another site, as we've said, that would change the entire narrative.
Yeah.
And again, and the thing is about the Scottish archaeology as well, right? Like big tracts of Cymru Wales, there's big. If you look at some archaeological databases across Cymru Wales, there's whole nothing, right? There's whole areas where there's nothing. And then people say nobody ever lived there. Well, nobody's done any research. That's why there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And then you look at Scotland as well. Nobody's researched it. Big areas. So therefore there's nothing there. Nobody ever did anything there. And you're just thinking, well, that's the wrong way of looking at archaeology.
Yeah, totally right.
And
what is interesting about those tablets, though, as you say, is they actually give you a kind of a between the lines, they give you an insight into Roman life generally, but on the lines, they give you a really parochial point of view of that one little town and those one lives, which is really interesting, because the rest of the stuff is more generic historical writings.
Yeah,
about who did what, where, and when, not who's fallen out with who, and so still owes me 26 denarii for that purse I gave him or whatever.
Yeah, there is one point with what you just said, right? If for example, what we're looking at is that the London stuff is relatively to about AD 200 odd. Vindolanda is probably about the same, and you're thinking, right, okay, is there another site that there's stuff from AD 300 to AD 400, right? And then that stuff would be dynamite, because that would so Andy, so say we had somebody with a document saying, well, I wrote off to Rome last week, and it's in the reign of Arcadius, which is a very late Roman emperor in the West, right? Or Honorius, right? at the end of Honorius's reign, right? I wrote to him asking if he could send something over, right? And this guy's a Roman official, and he happens to be based at a Roman site, and it basically said that there are actually proper Roman garrisons in Britain still, right? Will historians actually still historians still go on about this nonsense of the Roman military withdrawing in 410?
Yeah, that would put a stop to that, wouldn't it?
But would it? Well,
eventually it would have to. But we still get the Victorian point of view that we were all taught at school still pervades in a lot of it even today, doesn't it? So
yeah. And when the other one, the other cache with Bird Oswald, right? Yeah. And this is really interesting, right? The Bird Oswald garrison into the 420s, 430s is the same type of garrison that would have existed in Britain roughly about AD 380, AD 390. So the argument is that the garrison at Bird Oswald is not a garrison; it's just a group of soldiers that stayed behind with their families in a defended locality of Bird Oswald, right? Because it's not really an army, but the Romans really didn't have armies. They were already like that, so that argument doesn't work to say that it's not a military garrison when that's probably what they had anyway, right? So and it's all about this. Why the hell would you want to go to Rome, a place that nobody had ever been to in Britain, and defend an empire that you didn't really know? All these questions.
Yep, especially if they weren't paying you. Yeah.
And there's not much evidence of massive caches of coins coming over to Britain later on.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then again, they could have been paper banknotes.
Ooh, nice one. Yeah.
with the head of an emperor on it. There we go. Or Drina.
Papyrus notes. Yeah.
Exactly. On that note, we got Judith, and we'll call it a day. Judith. Is she gone?
No,
I'm
here. Can't you hear me?
Go on, Judith. Which? What? Go on.
Got nothing to add. Thank you very much.
Okay, then, brilliant. Well, that's really good tonight, and I'm glad. I gave you lots of discussion there tonight. Hopefully, Will be back next week, and Margaret will be back soon.
I'm going to be late next week. Is that all right?
Yeah, don't worry. Andy was late tonight. Don't worry about it. We'll just stay here. We'll just be here. Okay. David probably had problems getting on, so we'll just see how it goes. So, and Andy's already volunteered to collect, do the 1 hour trip to collect David if we do have a thing in Arnside in the near future.
Yeah, I'm sure we can sort something out. Yeah.
Okay, good. We'll just get Judith to take him back, and she'll end up all the way in Barrow and Furnace. That'll be good. Judith, David's on the way back to you going home.
Oh yeah. Okay.
in a roundabout way, yeah.
Andy, that wouldn't be too far off, would it? Because she's got to go out.
Yeah.
Not north to. Oh, she could go Carnforth.
I don't mind.
Tell her the Carnforth route. You get lost.
It's fine. Any idea when you're thinking? Have you got a month at least?
Not yet. It's just a matter of working out what's going on with the animals and stuff, and we'll just go what's happening. So
okay.
I'm not telling you. I told you what I was asked to do for casualty, but Andy missed that one. But you can tell him next week.
No, I looked up on the AI thing, and it told me something about your backside, which I thought, oh right, okay.
All right, okay, we'll just leave that up. I just
if you look on the AI companion, it gives you an opportunity to catch up on what you've missed. I'll get it to you and tell you exactly what it says, because I thought, I wonder if that is exactly what you said.
Yeah, we'll leave that one. Michelle then turned around and she said, "My God, if you get like £200-300 just to turn up to have your backside filmed," she said she's going to do it as well.
Yeah, I think there'd be quite a lot of people who would quite happy to do that. You could carry on, just take your laptop in with you and carry on working while you're.
You'll end up with an OnlyFans at this rate.
So if I'm lying flat, right, and doing the class, right, in a weird white room, right, then you know something's being filmed.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it now. On that note,
and you're whispering a bit. Yeah.
I'm whispering a bit. Yeah, whispering a bit. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's it. It'll be like, Carl, you could have gone home 2 hours ago, right? I'm doing this class. I got to complete it, and all the lights go out. Yeah.
The synopsis of the meeting is that it's not mentioning it now. It's because it's added on all the rest of it. So to keep it short, it's dropped the bit to talk about. Your acting.
Oh God!
Oh dear. Yes.
Very good.
On that note, they're loving this online.
Yeah.
Right. Okay then, folks. Right. I'm going to say goodnight to you guys. If nobody else got anything else to say, I got to fondle some more sheep. I want something else to eat. I don't know what, and I will no doubt see you next week. So thank you very much, guys. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you.
Good night, Judith, Gina,
Bye.
Andy,
Bye.
everybody else online. YouTube.
Thanks, Carl. Bye.
My pleasure. No night, folks. No night, Judith and Andy. Cool. And Judith knew how to do that. And Jarden, right? I wanted to mention. I'll just spit it out. If we sponsored your group at Pencoid, right, and you had a fleece with archaeology community on it, and you sort of pushed that side of things, right? Then let me know. Anyway, that's it. I'm gonna call anyway, Jarden. Get in touch. We'll chat on the doodah, and I'm back along tomorrow, Wednesday. And thanks for the. Says Carl is a celebrity historian writer in the Barron District News, and you're gonna love this week as well. So there you go. Awesome. So I'm going to call that a day. Nothing in the chat box. There's no chatting in the chat box. Nobody puts anything in there at this minute. So chat. Nothing. Anyway, so we're going to call that day. Nos da chi, na night, diolch yn fawr chi, gwelwch chi eto. And if somebody's watching from Spain, don't say cock-a-noodle. Exactly. Cock-a-noodle. Don't say it to a Spanish person. It's not good. Anyway, na night, Jarden, nos da chi, gwelwch chi eto, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. As we say in siarad Gymraeg, aro 3, 1, 2, 3. Nos da chi. Here we go.